Red Never Leather. Bubblegum, 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 bubblegum. Oh. What? I'm practicing. This is what you do when you warm up when you're an actor. You got to practice your lines. Red never. You got to practice bubblegum, bubblegum, bubblegum. There's always techniques. You didn't know that?
No.
Oh, well, maybe, just maybe, there might be somebody today that might be able to back me up on that today.
Maybe.
So, we'll see. But hey, here it is, Monday. Pop in around the world, special edition style. We got a great show for you. What's up, Mad Hatter, Roscoe Pops, Christina Payne, the amazing Christina Payne, Trapper. He's got his popcorn already. Reef, how's it going, Reef? Tats, who do you see?
Umpty.
Yep.
And you named everybody else. You got it all in.
All right, well, get them again. You got to rehearse your lines, right?
Well, and it would be nice if I told them hi too, I guess. Huh? Hey, Reef, what's up, Mad Hatter? Tat79, Christina Payne, Roscoe Pops, Bestie Squad. Got my shirt today from Roscoe Pops. Yeah.
Those shirts are fire.
They are.
Let me go ahead and, so we got a show today, Sassy, and I'm excited about this. I got an opportunity to message you, and I said, hey, do we have anything in the books for next week? I said, because, I just messaged this actress, and I'd like to get her in. And you're like, well, we do have someone in the books, but then they kind of bowed out or changed. We're looking for something down the road.
Right.
So it worked out perfect. And I got an opportunity to see her in another interview, and, a lot of good backstory, a lot of good information, and definitely, would love to have her, just give her story of things. And so I was like, hey, can you come and hang out and with us? And so she said yes. And what's up, Baby Ice? So you guys are in for a great treat tonight. This young lady is amazing. She's got some great stories. So we're going to have to get on the plane, and we're going to head to New Mexico, Sassy. You ever been to Albuquerque, New Mexico, anywhere in that area?
Actually, I think I spent the night there once on my way to when I graduated from college.
From college? Mm-hmm. I was there one time. I was doing like something with an advertising company or something. And we were kind of like going door to door, like businesses. And all of a sudden, just out of the blue, it started like raining, like just like, I was like, oh my God, like it just came out of the blue. But there are some really cool things to do in Albuquerque and New Mexico and stuff. And so, and you got to wave the flag, right?
Well, I think the best part of New Mexico for sure is Monique.
Oh, that in the chat, I'm sure they want to know who Monique is, right? Well, man, let's get on that plane and let's go to New Mexico, Sassy. Let's do it pop in around the world style. Here we go. All righty. So this young lady, she sings. What else does she do, Sassy?
Dance.
She's an actress. I know some of you guys that may be familiar with Breaking Bad. I know that she was in Breaking Bad, the waitress, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
She's got some other films that definitely would love to talk about. But a singer, dancer, arts, I mean, well-rounded, 100%. So we definitely want to get into some backstory and kind of go from there. So we are going to welcome Monique. Let's cue this up.
Oh my God. I was like, that was so freaking cool.
Well, how
I
are
did not
you?
expect that at all.
Well, that's how we do it here. You know, we want people, they come on and guest on our show. We want to treat them very special. So we like to do things just centered around them the best we can. But we're not done. We're not done, Monique. So before we get into that, but we just want to say, how are you? How's your day going?
It's going fantastic. Doing some spring cleaning and recalibrating myself to be the best that I can possibly be. It's a 4/4 portal, so I don't know if you guys are into that stuff, but for spiritualism, there's certain times of the year when there's more energy, and if you want to reset and get yourself ready for whatever your heart desires, those are great times to do that.
Is copper? I heard copper is really good with energy. Is copper
Oh,
have some
absolutely.
energy? Yeah.
So actually, people don't really mix metals and stones to accentuate what they actually want the stone to do. But for copper, the reason why it's inside of your home all over the place is because it's one of the best conductors of energy. So whenever you're wearing it and pairing it with stones, essentially you're magnifying the physical properties of that stone to benefit the body. So if you're wearing a bracelet, typically you would put the copper on your left hand. I wonder if it's right. Are you guys seeing it? Is this my left hand, or I look retarded holding my right hand?
It's your right hand.
Yeah.
So we do it this way. There we go. So left hand, and basically you put it on, you slide it basically like 2 inches above, and then slide it down, and basically it sends the particles like through your bodies to say, oh, like I want this energy healing to flow all throughout the body. People gravitate towards silver, but silver is connected to the moon, psychic intuition, all of that good stuff. So really silver should be used for meditation. Gold is like if you do public speaking, you need that protection, you know, then you would be using gold for protection, wealth, and abundance. So yeah, it's really interesting when you start getting into metals.
Wow.
Well,
You gave me more information than I wanted.
Well, we're definitely going to get into a little bit more, but I want the chat and people to know a little bit of backstory for you. So let me go ahead and pull this up here, and something that we prepared. So I have this, and let me go ahead and get full screen. All right, so here we go.
You're watching? What, you go from being a delinquent to a philanthropist overnight? It's not like that, Mom. Yeah, tell me what it's like. Everything has been to make things better for you.
Bring me home almost every night? That makes things better for me?
That's right. Go ahead. You judge me for not having an abortion at 15, for graduating from high school even after I was kicked out of my house, dumped by my boyfriend, and had to live in a women's shelter. You judge me for getting a nursing job to get into medical school so I could prove to you that you can do anything you set your mind to. You judge me.
I miss Spaka. Hi, how are you?
My rejection letter just added to the top of the heap. I know you have it in your computer. Admit it, you were probably about to print it out. Right now, I'm just saving you the postage.
Spaka, we don't typically discuss.
I am never gonna stop. Do you hear me? Do you know who trains the students in your school? I do. I know 10 times as much medicine as they do, and I don't need to go to your med school. But I will go to med school. You got that? You're just a speed bump.
Hey, Danny. So you got something for me?
She's not pretty, but she does a job.
So Sassy, I don't know if you know, that's Randy Orton, the wrestler.
Sorry, the pay's not better.
Oh, okay.
Tell me about it. So this place still your dad's?
I actually own it with him.
Look at you.
All right, go ahead and check her out.
All right. Is she capable of towing anything?
You're just gonna have to find out for yourself.
Fair enough.
Not too shabby, right?
You know what, Danny? I think she'll work just fine.
I'm gonna put you on the top of the overtime list.
I don't know what to say. Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it.
No problem. I remember coming home early from one of my performances. Not because I wanted to, but because I kept receiving texts from Sir. Are you serious? You were an idiot, Dr. Carruthers. I hate her. How could you sleep with my husband? How could you? Birthday meals are free at Denny's. All you gotta show is a valid ID.
I'm good, thanks.
Really? Free meal. Free is good. Even if I was like rich, free is always good.
Thank you. Okay.
Excuse me, ladies. Where are you guys sitting?
I don't know. You got a spot for us?
I have a gentleman here who's willing to open up 2 seats for you.
Yeah.
Oh, ladies, please. Would you like to be our guest? Get your booty out of the floor here. I'm about to go on a safari.
Okay, I don't care who the hell's in there. I'm Kim Baker.
Jerry's expecting.
Okay, nice satisfying.
Can I take you back?
Yes, please.
Would you care for some water?
Yes.
All right. So,
Wow, that was like blast from the past. Woo! That was awesome.
it's always, I mean, it's always good to kind of like see some of your performances and be like, okay, oh, I did that. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I would have done this differently, or I love this, or
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
'cause you have so many favorites, and you're just like, you know, when you do a lot of films and shows, you know, you start accumulating the way that you do things, right?
Sure. Yes.
Because it's a learning curve, and you're obviously, you have an opportunity. You've had some great roles as far as like with some actors that we know, right? Anthony Mackie,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, obviously Cranston, you know, and then you have Brad Dourif and things like that. So you're getting an opportunity to go in and meet some people in the industry, and then you get an opportunity to build your direction in the industry as well. So, you know, it's great to see that 100%. So, but the thing is it didn't always start with acting. You know, although maybe modeling, right? Because when you were 7, JC Penney came calling, right? Did you not have a
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You actually, yeah, there you go.
catalog, and then you got an opportunity to sing, because you're also a singer, and I think that was one of your first passions, was singing a little bit too, right? And so what was that like with the teen? It was teen. Like what did we have?
It was dance. It's a teen thing.
It's a
Yeah.
teen thing.
So what
Oh,
that must have been a great experience right there. Just somebody wanting you to be able to sing and get up and perform, because singing means a lot to, you know, people differently. Like it's a release, you know, it's an escapism. It's an opportunity to kind of just like express yourself. So, you know, what has singing been for you?
Ooh. What has singing been for me? It's my security blanket, truthfully. For me, singing was the first artistic method I found that alleviated any feeling I could possibly have by just simply listening to music. I truthfully did not know that I could sing. It's not like all of a sudden I was a kid and I was like, I'm just this great singer. No, honestly, I watched The Little Mermaid probably far too much. When we lived in Germany, that was one of the tapes that we had. So I watched it 3 times a day, every single day for like 3 years. So that was probably one of like the first songs that I learned. And when we ended up back in New Mexico, of course, once you realize you learned a song, you know, you go to your family and you're like, hey, look at what I can do, you know, and you sing The Little Mermaid. So it was a cousin of mine that was going to be getting married, and I was 7 years old. Was I 7 years old? Wait, give me 1 second. Let me break for a moment. No, I was 10 years old, and she was going to get married, and she asked me to sing inside of the church, and I was like, cool. Like, I didn't think much of it. I've never really been shy. I have to say though that my dad is completely tone deaf. Cannot sing a note to save his life, and yet he was never like embarrassed about it. So I think as a kid I was more like, there is no way that I can sound worse than him. So if he's not shy about it, why should I? You know, why should I be? So I sang inside of the church, and that was probably one of the first times where I just saw how music can capture a moment and create such a beautiful memory in someone's special moment, you know. So it was my first correlation to realize that I didn't necessarily need to be part of something in order for people to experience what that was and the emotion behind it. And even still, even though I was getting asked to sing in weddings and funerals after that, I still didn't really wasn't like, yeah, I'm a singer, even though I was doing these things. It was just more like, all right. Until 5th grade, I had a music in elementary school, and I got selected to sing the national anthem for our 5th grade graduation. And honestly, even when they had asked me to do it, I was like, well, of course they picked me. I'm like the loudest, so why wouldn't they pick me? So like I learned the song, I performed the song, and when you're a kid, you get done and you get off that stage and you trying to run, I was trying to run to my mom, and this lady, like literally just, it wasn't intentional, but I was like mid-stride and she stepped right in front of me and I slammed into her and flew on the floor. And she was like, I'm so sorry. She's really helping. I got up and she was just like, I just wanted to tell you how beautiful your voice is. Like, thank you like so much for that. And she's like, okay, you can go to your mom now. And I was like, I didn't know how to process the information. So I was like, yeah, okay, like thanks, So I went to go to where my mom was, and there were so many parents that were around her that I realized that at that moment, it wasn't an emotional song. It wasn't an emotional event. It was something else entirely. And yet people were able to resonate with the national anthem, and completely take that in. And it was an experience that I had never felt before. So once I got to middle school is when I got into swing choir. I started doing like state championships, for every year for the school. And it was just a beautiful discovery on how to hone my skills. And I really did have a fantastic middle school teacher, Mr. Barrett, that really focused on how to best accentuate my voice for my own sound and not sounding like others. So in 6th grade, I did a talent show. I won 1st place in the talent show for the song Mulan, the one that goes, look at me, you may think you see who I really am. I know that does not sound great through here. But I remember the day before that for that performance, the guy that was putting it together was like, you know what? I was going to sing it a cappella. And he was like, you know what? I got you background music. It's going to sound so much better, so much fuller, you know? And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I can just sing it a cappella. It's fine. And he's like, no, here, like, go home, work with it. It's going to be amazing. And I was like, okay, all right. You know what? Thank you. Like, you went out of your way. And at the time, getting karaoke music was not easy. Like, now you can, you know, go to karaoke online and, you know, download a song, but like to find a place that has a certain song, it's really difficult. So anyways, I get home and the version of that song is the Christina Aguilera song. And not is it just like a different version, but it's different words altogether, like in most of the parts, and the style is different. So like I just gave you a little bit of like what it is in the cartoon, but suddenly I got it and it was like, look at me, you may think you see who I really am, but you'll never know me every day. It's as if I fly apart. You know, so I was like, oh my God, what is this? You know, I busted my butt literally like the entire night trying to like learn this different version and get the old one out of my head. So here I am, performance day, I'm in front of everybody, and you know, I have to admit, like the end came and I was mixing everything. It was like half of the one from the cartoon, half of the words from hers. You know, I literally was, the only thing I knew, and they always say, just keep going. Whatever comes, right? You just keep going. So when it was done, like honestly, I was shitting bricks. I was like, oh my God, like I hope that's that was not what I practiced. That was not what I was, you know, what I intended to do. And so when I won first place, I genuinely didn't expect it. I was so in my head over everything that should have been or could have been, or, you know, that it was a beautiful surprise for me. You know, I've never been the type to be like, yeah, I'm the best. I have to work really hard for things. So for me, it's all about ownership. And that's basically what I've been taught all my life in a military family. So anyways, so then 7th grade, Colorado, I did do my first musical there where I was the ghost of Christmas Present. And I'm pretty certain I sang all my lines. So let's not pretend I was a great actor either. Like, I think pretty much all those lines were just like, I am the ghost of Christmas Present. It was horrible. I'm certain it was horrible. Maybe just in my head. They obviously cast me for the part, so I'm going to assume that I didn't do too bad. But that was probably my first experience doing a musical. And then come 8th grade, I came back to New Mexico, where I was inside the same school I was prior. I won 1st and 3rd place in the talent show that year. 1st place for Sweet Dreams by Patsy Cline.
Oh,
and then I had 3rd place for Genie in a Bottle from Christina Aguilera. So that time I owned the Christina Aguilera thing, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do another one just so that I can prove to myself that I can do a different song of hers. But yeah, so I won those 2. I won state competition. I got a weird award for swing choir too for best facial expressions. So that was probably the first time that I got recognition that my face is very expressive apparently when I sing. So I was like, cool. So when I was going to high school, I was like, okay, I had recommendation letters from obviously like my choir teacher, my swing choir teacher. And obviously I had, you know, the awards that I had won, and I had, you know, submitted everything so that I could join the swing choir in high school. And I went and auditioned, and you heard this on the last interview, but essentially the one that was part of the teacher of that program told me that I'm a French fry, they're mashed potatoes, and they don't need a student that stands out above the others. So I wasn't allowed to be in the swing choir, regardless of whatever training or credentials that I had. My mom did try to fight, you know, and essentially it was just like, look, that's her program and she gets to decide who's in it and you're not it. So it was humbling. It was another humbling moment of just you can work very hard at something, you can win at things, and it doesn't always go that way, but it was a blessing because of the fact that I couldn't do that. The following year is when I took my official first acting course, where they were really diving into different styles, techniques, and it still was geared more towards stage acting, but it was the first like full encompassing acting class that I had ever taken. I loved it. Me and the teacher didn't always get along, and you know, I'm an ornery person, so I'm not saying it's all the teacher for sure. I had already had a bad experience with the music teacher, that there were times when there's just, I don't know. I'm not going to excuse it. I was a teenager and probably, not always the pleasant. So,
well, the other side of it is you got rejection, and I mean, even though that you probably were good enough to like blow everybody away when you got the rejection, but now in acting, you can go and audition for a role and you do really well, but they didn't want to take you. Like, they're going to go with somebody else. And so you learned that part of the business of the rejection side too. So those experiences kind of lead into it, and you're like, well, man, I nailed it. Like, what happened? Why am I not picked? But on the other hand,
I have to say I didn't come in contact with that right away, only because I wasn't auditioning for things outside of school. And I did have even though like me and the teacher didn't always get along, like I was cast as Frenchie and oh my God.
Grease.
Yes, thank you. In Grease. Yes, so I was cast as Frenchie, and that was like another musical that I was cast for. I did end up, I'm trying to think of there was a couple of other things that I got to be like the lead character. So actually when it came to me auditioning in the acting class, I was landing the parts that I was going for. So I didn't have that feeling. It was actually more for me an exploration of taking words off of a page and not singing them, because I already told you the disaster of me singing all of my lines in musical me in 7th grade. So it was really like how to adapt that and how to just bring a conversational tone in myself to the project. So I think pretty quickly I realized that nobody can be like, you are you, and no one can be better at being you than yourself. So why would you not bring yourself to whatever you're going to be doing? So I think for me, it was just more honing in of like, okay, I did this aspect of it, which was very musical. And now I'm in this one, which is bringing it in and taking text off of a page. And I was also in enriched English courses and writing courses. So I did win a couple of awards for writing. So that was also a part of the art world where there's no music and there's no actual like verbal dialogue, and capturing an audience through just the written word, and how beautiful and artistic that can be. So it was really self-discovery. High school was self-discovery, and mainly because I couldn't do the singing. Like suddenly I had to do other things. Then the next year I chose not to do singing, not to do acting, but dance. And then in that dance class, I had obviously like learned enough that when the auditions came for dance, it's a team thing, I went and auditioned and I was picked up. So that became a part of my life for about 1.5 to 2 years. And that was something else. My mom was so strict with me that I wasn't allowed to go anywhere at all. Like it was just,
wow.
I mean, I have to say I was probably the hairiest 14-year-old there ever was. I wasn't allowed to shave. I couldn't wear makeup. I was a disaster as far as aesthetics go, I feel like. So eventually I could do all those things, but wow, ADD moment. What am I talking about?
Well, with the singing, let me, I mean, now with some of your movies, because you do sing, have you thought about taking on a role, that would allow you to sing, that would give you an opportunity to be in like, let's say a live action Disney movie and you're able to use your voice, you know what I'm saying? I know that there's a lot of singing stuff out there that growing up watching like Nightmare Before Christmas, is one of yours on the list. You know, because obviously, you know, Tim Burton is a huge fan of Tim Burton, right? If I'm not mistaken. And from what I understand, I think he's a big fan of yours. He is in the audience. He's watching. Tim, yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. So, but you know, it seems like it would fit. Like they would say, "Hey, let's cast her. She can sing, dance. Like it'd be a great opportunity for some of your movies. You know, moving forward. You know, is that something that you'd be willing to do? You know, like singing."
Yeah. It's not about willingness. I think it comes down to people have the misconception that it's all about like who you know, and it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you.
Yeah.
So while people, like I've seen people ruin auditions because they start looking up a project and they're like, oh my God, it's going to be this person, you know, and it's this, you know, all my dreams are going to come true. And then they're nervous because they need this, they want it in their life. And then they go into the audition, they bring that energy in, and it's essentially a shit show. Like you can feel when somebody feels desperate or needy or, you know, so I guess with that being said is yes, Nightmare Before Christmas was something that I watched so frequently. We had to buy 2 VHS tapes because, you know, eventually it gets so worn out that, you know, it just, gosh, I'm aging myself really bad. But yes, you know, you just, yeah. You know, it gets bad. But then DVDs came out and I got that. And to this day, I probably at least watch it like 3 times out of a month. If given the opportunity, let's just even say that it was for cartoons and I'm not seeing it all. If that was my career and that's the route that it went, I would gladly do that and not be recognized at all. And it comes down to even being monster creatures. Like I will definitely say voice manipulation is one of my main skills because of all the voice training that I've had. And I have to say, like, I love horror, but it can get cheesy real quick if you don't know how to have like a good balance. Like some people trying to be scary, you're just kind of like, that was funny. And then other times people sell it and you don't even notice the difference. You're like, I genuinely believed it. So if I could be in costume all the time and nobody even knew, that's totally fine with me. So yes, we'll put that out there. Manifestations. I will be a voice actor. I get to sing and be a bunch of monster characters.
So would you go on The Masked Singer?
I'm sorry?
Would you go on The Masked Singer? You know that show on TV, The Masked Singer?
Oh, The Masked Singer.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up learning that because I'm a union actor, I can't actually do any one of those shows. They basically own you for the time that you're on those shows. I've been union since 2011, and I didn't really realize those rules until they were doing voice auditions here for the American Idol. I remember when that was a huge thing. And if you read the back, like I was in line waiting to like do the audition, reading the back, going like, oh my God, like I don't know if there's even a way to do this because it is a visual format, and pretty much SAG is like, unless it's union and specifically through us and they're doing these things, like you can't do it. So I will say probably never because of
wow. If you had an opportunity to though, and you were able to, would you?
Yeah, I think it would be a blast.
Yeah.
So when we talk, let's talk about like roles and stuff. Now you had an opportunity to get into your first role, and and so you get singing, you got some arts. There's a lot of things that you're developing and rounding out, but now you're adding acting to your list of achievements. So what was that like with your first role? Like hearing about it, going through the process. Tell us about your first opportunity.
Okay. So the first opportunity I had was while I was still in college. It was 2008. I graduated in 2009 from UNM. So what was hard about UNM is that everything is participation credits. So we really weren't allowed to get like physical experience and actually build up a resume while we were learning because we had to be present. Otherwise you wouldn't pass the class. But there was an opportunity that suddenly came that we went into the class and they were like, hey, there's a casting director that's over in this building. It's, you know, it's for a role on spoken word, you know, basically just go there and see what they need, you know, that way you guys can audition. And I was like, oh, cool, like awesome. And they were actually asking for like a 2-minute scene or monologue, you know, that you could bring in, which that's not how it goes. Usually they give you sides, which is a small portion of the script, and then you would read that. But because this character didn't actually have lines, it was a flashback scene. They were just wanting to see basically acting chops. So I remember I had done a monologue called 2 minutes, and basically you go into almost like 7 different like personality types of like freaking out about only having 2 minutes to show all of your skills. So I ended up doing that scene for him, and I ended up getting cast for that part. And this was also in the other interview, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but basically what happened was I got cast. I ended up on set, you know, it was a period piece, so they decked me out, you know, where my earrings matched the color of the car, and I got to see like who my husband was, you know, and the character was deceased in the present time, so I was supposed to be the mother of the main character. And it was just like, wow, like what a beautiful like key moment like for this film. And even though there's no words, like wow, like how pivotal is that to still create that connection. So we got there, and there's this green screen behind me, you know, or behind the car, because we're supposed to be in a car, so it was supposed to be like us driving, but they had the green screen behind it. And the whole thing went really well. Like it was so beautiful. I was like, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see this. You know, whenever it came out, it was the first time I was Googleable. So suddenly you go type my name in, and it was like Monique Candelaria, spoken word, Monique Candelaria. And I was like, oh, wow, I can't wait to see this. Like I'm actually getting recognition for it. Like that's insane. And then I got invited to the premiere. I go, I watch it, and I'm not in it. I was on the cutting room floor. And, at first you're there obviously with, some friends and family, because you were excited that you're in it and it's the first thing you've ever done. So you told all of your loved ones and friends. So those who actually went, they're like, where were you? Like, did I miss you? Like, did I not see you? Like, were you like, did you like pass through? And I was like, no, I wasn't in it. So like there was just like this moment like of like, oh wow, like I genuinely just didn't expect it. So then we had gotten out, and one of the director producers like came out, and they were just like, I want you to know that I loved everything that you did, everything that you brought to the table, and everything that scene had to offer. But we ran out of funds during post, and we didn't have the ability to switch out the green screen. Therefore, they had to cut the whole thing. So I had people for about a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half, because it wasn't until I landed the thing on Bless Me Ultima that there was something else to like take the center stage over spoken word. But anybody who was around or in acting courses with me, or they were like, so how did it go? Or where were you? Where were you? Where were you? And I was like, saying it 100 times of like, I'm on the cutting room floor is not fun. So it's actually a benefit for an actor to learn. Just don't say anything until you see it. Because at that point, like, then you can say, yes, I'm right there. Like, but otherwise to explain it to God knows how many people is not fun.
Yeah. And, and it's something that was beyond your control, but I mean, it's hard because you're like, you put all that time and effort into it. And then it's like, they're telling you, you did a great job, but we can't find the funds. It's like, what, it's like, wait, why? Like, that's crazy, but you did continue. I mean, you did get an opportunity to have some scenes out there that are not on the cutting floor.
Yeah.
And definitely you have some scenes with some notable characters. And we know with Breaking Bad was one of your I know that Bryan Cranston showed up in the university, right? You guys had like a Q&A.
Yeah.
You guys did a Q&A with Bryan Cranston, and then Aaron Paul, right? It was there as well. And it was funny because now they do that Q&A, but you actually ended up doing a scene in Breaking Bad, as the waitress, and you get an opportunity to talk to one of the main guys, so you know, is that something that became nervous for you, or you were like, I just want to take this on, like this is great opportunity, so I'm going to grab it, you know, by the horns and run with it? You know, how was that for you doing the scene for Breaking Bad? Let me give you guys a little. Oh, this is the way it should be, right, Monique?
Oh yeah, no one knows that I was a pivotal part. Why else would he give me $100 tip in him getting weapons?
But she was obviously giving some advice and talking to him, you know, in the scene as a waitress. So obviously, but he did become pivotal for you down the road for acting, because I'm sure you had an opportunity to gain some advice from him, you know, that might have been a little helpful and knowledgeable for someone that's starting out in their acting career, correct? So was Brian?
Yeah, you said so much that I don't even know where to begin. So I'll begin at the beginning. So the Q&A happened. I was in a class at UNM called Entering the Profession, which was geared towards actually using our acting skills and everything we learned to actually go out in the world and become a professional actor. This is where basically you learn how to do auditions for one-liners, five-liners, guest star roles, leads, how to do, you know, comedy shows, skits, create them, and basically throw yourself out there. So you have a lot of practice also seeing yourself. So it's not as nerve-wracking as you think when you've already been making an ass out of yourself in front of 60 people where they're all critiquing you. I had a moment even inside that class where, I mean, it's a screen that's, we're in a theater, okay, they use a whole wall, so you're seeing yourself blown up like a gazillion times bigger than yourself. But as you can see, I usually do use my eyebrows quite a bit. But I had done something, and basically they look like caterpillars just like going across like the screen, and I was so mortified. Like I was like, oh my God. So realizing that, you know, film picks up a lot, and really you just have to think it as long as you're thinking and actually listening, like, and having thoughts when they're talking about you, where it's not like, oh my God. So like you'll see it, sorry, I'm gonna go on a little side tangent. So like, you know, when people are trying to take a photo and they get in their head where they're like, do I look good? Like, does that look good? Is that angle right? And their eyes look like a doe caught in headlights. You know, there's no expression. They're not thinking anything but internally of like what's, you know, where their body's at. If they would just think a thought, like for instance, if this same pose and the thought was like, you're such a creep, that's a look. That's a thought, and the vibe comes out. So the same thing is with acting, is that when someone's talking to you, you're actively thinking about it because you already are the character. You've already done the homework to understand the roots of the character. So I will say that whole training, that semester was completely invaluable for the rest of my life. And while I have continued to learn, I will say that I was not nervous by being on set because I did feel very prepped. They did a good job of teaching continuity, learning memorization techniques, and various different things that you feel really uncomfortable until you do them a couple times. Okay, so now back to what you were saying. You had asked me about Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul. So they came in a Q&A in this class. And I'll be honest, I was like, as soon as I graduate, I am out of New Mexico. I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to go to California, you know, and I'm just going to run for it. I'm going to go for it. So they came in, and of course, you know, we're asking tons of questions. You learn that, you know, well, not me. I knew that Bryan Cranston was the voice of the Blue Power Rangers. So it was like, that was you, right? So see, guys, I do like voiceover stuff. But anyways, it was really humbling to see how, yes, I was like, oh, that's great. It was very humbling to hear their stories, you know, and to hear Aaron Paul say that he basically was living out of somebody's closet in LA, you know, realizing that hardship, and then also suddenly realizing, oh my God, Breaking Bad is in New Mexico. Like, the film industry is coming to New Mexico. And I think that was like the first moment that I was like, wait a minute, like, use your head, like, be smart. Like, I mean, what are the chances that it's coming to your home state? It's better to be a big fish in a small pond than it is to be in a minnow in an ocean full of sharks. Over 300 1,000 people go to California every year to just pursue acting. So I was like, no, it's better for me to establish myself from here. This is my roots, and there is an energy to the people here. I will say that we are raw. You either like us or you don't. We're not particularly offended by it. Not that we're rude about it either, but it's more like what you see is what you get. And there is that essence that's pretty much in anything that's also created here. So I think I did resonate with Breaking Bad in the sense that they chose a place that's raw and the story's raw. And even though like it does talk about drugs and probably gives a misconception of, you know, all that's in New Mexico, it certainly did capture beauty with imperfect. Does that make sense? Like it was a perfectly imperfect story, you know, of, you know, what is right in a world where you're trying to take care of your family.
Okay.
So with that being said, I did establish myself here, you know, in my hometown, and the opportunities that came were also because of people also remembering me and also taking action. So I will say that when I graduated, like I told you guys, we weren't allowed to do background work, to get set etiquette, to really know what happens on set. I didn't have proper headshots. They didn't pair us up with, like, you know, even the photography area at UNM in order for us to like get those materials, or whatever videography, like for us to have a reel. So you know, people were like, are you excited? You're graduating. And I'm like, I have a lot of knowledge, but literally not one thing to help me truly establish myself, you know, within my career. I have nothing. So with me acknowledging the tools that I would need, I basically took a year to just jump into doing background work, doing stand-in work, basically figuring out the set etiquette, how things run, where like everything is at essentially, and then getting at least the basic tools of, hey, headshots. So you actually put up a headshot where on the thing that we posted on Instagram, and that headshot is from 2008, and that was the first official headshot that I had ever really taken, that I used actively and actually landed parts with. You know, so that was a blast from the past. I was like, oh my God, that was 14 years ago. That's me 14 years ago. I was like, oh, wasn't I a dish? So anyways, got all of that set. So yeah, there you go. Look at me. Those thin eyebrows, dead giveaway of time period for sure.
Well, I know, you know, one of the things I want to make sure too, we have questions in the chat, and I definitely want to make sure that we do get those. I want to try to get that to you if possible at times. So Ozzy Pop and Paul says, have you ever got to travel a lot with the acting? And what was your favorite place to visit?
Loaded question. I haven't gotten to travel a lot, but I have been fortunate enough to actually travel. The first film that I was cast in for a lead role was The Control Group, and I was in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, for a month. And we were shooting at an abandoned insane asylum, a Kirkbride insane asylum. And there were floors, well, because it was abandoned, there was floors that were completely not in use. So even in exploring, we did have to let people know, because it was a hospital, that certain doors would lock if they shut behind you. So you could get in, but it would shut behind you and lock. So if you could essentially, well, actually a person on a project before us, there was a guy that went exploring, didn't tell anybody, and he was locked in a space for 2 days before they found him.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was like one of their first like safety things of like, hey, this happened, don't, you know. And I'm very explorative, and people were scared. So, you know, some of the people were not as enthused to explore as I was. I had also found a bunch of bat bones that I wanted to like collect and clean and like use to make things out of. I even went to like a little store there, so that way I could like not grab it with my hands, like get gloves, and I got all this supplies. And then I went to go to the same spot, and I don't know who cleaned it or what happened, but it miraculously was gone. So I did take pictures, so at least I know I'm not making stuff up in my head. They once were there. I just don't know what happened to them. But yes, anyways, I will say that that's probably my favorite place that I've been because of all of those little details in exploring in a place that was pretty morbid and decrepit.
Okay.
I have been to Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's where I did Driftless. And that was actually pretty freaking awesome too. And I was there for about a month there as well. That's the first time I ever saw a firefly. And I had just gotten off set and I was sitting in the back of, they had put us up in school dorms. So they had all of like this green area with a bunch of trees all around. And I was eating oatmeal. Like yeah, anyways, I was eating oatmeal and all of a sudden I look up and I was like, what is that? And then I saw like another thing flicker and I was like, fairies. And then there was a girl that was sitting next to me. I was like, am I tripping? Like, am I seeing things? And she was like, oh no, it's, what did she call it? She called it the lightning bug. Yeah. And I was like, what? So like I really like wanted to see one up close and I couldn't get close enough one to that, like that particular day. When I finally did get close to one, it was when we were eating out and it was like, it just looked like a very simple ugly beetle. And I was like, that's it? I was like, that's what's making it like, I don't know what I thought it looked like up close, but I don't know. I had this whole different idea. So it got close enough where I could record it. So I have my little video of my lightning bug. I didn't go on an exploration where I wanted that whole like Disney moment of like, here's a jar with lightning bugs, you know? I only successfully caught 3 of them. So I'm definitely not skilled in that area. But because they were in the jar, I don't know if there wasn't enough oxygen or what happened. I did poke holes, but they died. And my heart was so broken over 3. I was so glad that I didn't catch more. So I had a blast. You know, I learned so much with all of the kids too. You know, it was a school that, a college that actually figured out how to do all the funding, put it together. It was a learning experience, and to work in that environment is really beautiful because there's no such thing as, you know, somebody being above another. We're all in it and we're all in the thick of it. And we're all in those like learning phases of where everyone's at and how do we best like grow together. Which was kind of like Sense that I had done here. So that was also, a lot of the crew were students. So I like being in those environments. Those are always very nice. The other one, I went to Atlanta, Georgia for Lovecraft Country. I will admit that I did not get to really explore Atlanta. I was so nerve-wracked over everything that I was going to have to do that I didn't feel at liberty to go explore. They also didn't have me there the whole time. They were flying me back and forth. So I felt like when I got there, I really only had, you know, maybe a day and a half before I needed to be on set. And with that one, I was speaking in a language that's been dead since the 18th century. It's an Arawak tribal language. So I wanted to honor that language. I wanted to make sure, yes. Yeah. Hima. That character also had underwater scenes. So that was an interesting experience for me because, well, guys, I'm from a desert, okay? So there's not exactly a lot of water areas here. So I remember you know, when they called me in Michigan to really ask me like, you know, how I was in water, they were basically like, so how are you in water? And like, I'm thinking I'm a desert girl, you know, my swimming pool was a trash bag with a hose inside of it. My personal like swimming, you know, pool. So I told them, I was like, look, like I won't drown, but I wouldn't say that I'm a fish. And they were like, perfect answer. As soon as you get back to your home state, you know, we'll go ahead and get you whatever lessons that you need. We'll make sure that you're ready. You'll get reevaluated in Atlanta, and then we'll get you in there. They were like, but we do have a couple of other questions. So how are you basically in the dark? And I was like, what are you talking about? So basically we were going to be in a 24-foot tank with only 4 inches of air above our heads inside of the elevator that we were going through. So really it wasn't like, oh, I'm in a film where, you know, I'm a swimming athlete and I have to really know how to know. It's like you're swimming for your life underwater and you can't see anything in front of you. So how are you in dark spaces? Are you claustrophobic? When we actually did get to set, the rehearsal day right before, that was an interesting experience because well, one, they hadn't sewn everything up yet to make sure that my robe didn't just open. There's a lot of other things. So now we do have intimacy coordinators, which we had touched on a little bit. But that day there wasn't an intimacy coordinator there, and they didn't have like the underpiece. So I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, they made such a big deal. Like, I can't just be naked. This thing can't just open. You know what I mean? So I was like, do you guys have the underpiece for me yet? Which was the wrong question to ask. And now I know how to ask things a little bit differently. What I should have said, can you guys get me, you know, underwear or some things that I can put underneath this, and sent him on that mission. Instead, I sent them looking for something that wasn't ready and wasn't going to be ready until the actual day. So they never came back. So basically I had the PA saying, all right, you need to be over there, rehearsal starting. And I'm like, wait, they haven't brought it back. So at least my intuition told me to like bring more coverage for underwear. I don't know, like I'm going to call it, you know, the film gods, the little voice on my shoulder. But that day when I was leaving, it was like, cool, wear these, you know, booty shorts, which were bright pink. It's the only color I had. It's not like I was exactly thinking of wearing booty shorts or somewhere, you know, these booty shorts. And then I, on a different day, like they had given me like this tube top, you know, that I was wearing when they were putting on like all the tattoos and stuff. And when I took it off, I was like, you know what, I might need this at some point. So I had put it on the top of like this area in the trailer that was mine. So it just so happened that was there for me to put on underneath. So I actually did have something where I wasn't completely naked. So I put on the robe, I get over there. We go to get into the water and they're like, oh yeah, hey guys, just watch out for the chicken wire.
The chicken wire.
Guys, there's chicken wire in the water. Like, I was like dumbfounded. And no, it was just that certain things weren't done quite yet. They hadn't finished putting on the outer layer of the wall. So the chicken wire was there. So at first I was like, well, of course, like I'm not going to get like near the chicken wire, you know? So I get inside the water, and what is a robe? What does any fabric do? It just went. So like here I am trying to like gather, and mind you guys, like they have like some things that we can grab onto, but there's no floor beneath your feet. Like once you're in, it's not like your little pinky toe or, you know, big toe is touching the bottom, you know? So I was like, okay, I think I gathered myself. All right. So then they're like, okay, come over here. Like, we're going to show you guys where you're going to be diving into. And I was like, okay. So I go where it is. And of course I go to swim, and the rope catches onto, again, the chicken wire. So here I am trying to pull this rope off the chicken wire. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm having a mild meltdown, trying not to like appear like a meltdown. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. So then I actually was okay in the water though, guys. Sorry, let me backtrack a little bit. I did end up getting a trainer, somebody who trained me 2 hours for 2 days each day. He happened to be my sensei for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I did do Wim Hof breathing. So I actually felt really good in the water. So as far as me being a desert girl, I felt like I grew a fin, okay, guys, because I actually felt pretty good. But anyways, we go to where we're going to be diving into the water. Well, there's so much chlorine in the water that when your hands go out, you can't see past your fingertips. Okay, so it's not about being in a dark spot. It's also that the chlorine is just so thick. So it's amazing to actually see the shots that are in the show because it looks so clear and pristine. And even when they're like, because they're in goggles and they're able to see in the water, they're like, oh, you must stay right of the camera. And you're like, right of the camera? Like, you can't even see the camera. Like, there's nothing in the water. So I'll go into that in a second. But for the dive, basically, all we had to do is, it's not a crazy thing, guys. Like, literally, we're right here. We needed to just dive deep enough to go into the entryway of this elevator. And then I needed to swim through 3 people and then get to the backside of the elevator. And then you just needed to be mindful that you couldn't go like, because the top is there. So you'll smack your head if you try coming up like that. Like, you need to actually come up calm. Otherwise, you'll hit your head on the top.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've got this. So I thought I dove deep enough, but I didn't. I actually basically I instead of going like this, I kind of went like this, but couldn't tell. So I went straight into the top part of the elevator, and I went straight on. So I was just like whoosh. So like there was this moment where I was like, ooh, well, that didn't work, right? And then I was like, okay, what do I do? Like, do I get up? Like I did dive deep enough where I was already in the water and I was close to the bottom. So like I felt like where the edge was, and they saw that I was okay. So they did have scuba divers and stuff like that. So they helped push me down basically to get into like the elevator. And then finally I swam through the people and I came up and I was like, I did it. I didn't freak out. I'm alive. I've never been so excited and hit my head in my whole life. But it was like the true testament of whether I would go into panic mode and like drown or whether or not, you know, sorry, I did see that look comment. I'll definitely get to that question for sure.
Okay.
I felt really excited about that moment because it felt like it was a huge accomplishment of the skills that I had learned, the training I had done, not panicking, not being afraid of being in like a confined space. So that character in that region of my, like when I think of Atlanta, I think of everything that I learned in all of those trials. And I can't help but love it for that reason, but I wish that I could have explored more of it. So I know that was a really winded, long way for me to explain what my favorite areas were and why.
But now in that film, okay, there's a scene where you're in the elevator and you're screaming and you get hit, right? There's a scene in there. Now, do you do like, do people do stunts for you, or is that something you did on your own? Like, because
oh yeah, so I've done stunts before, so I am trained to do stunts. I'm not going to say that I went to California for it, but I have taken a number of stunt courses here in New Mexico. So knowing how to take a hit is definitely is a skill that I'm pretty good with. There were stunt doubles that were in there. It was interesting because really the only thing that they got to do for us was the jump where they're like jumping through the area where they find me and into the water is really the only thing that they actually did that's even on the screen. But as far as us actually doing the dive ourselves into the elevator, swimming underwater, like all of that was us. Okay. So yeah, I feel actually pretty blessed that we got to, but I also do realize how hurt we could have gotten. There was a moment where we were swimming, where right as they land into the water, basically we needed to swim forward to get to where the elevator was in the show. So anyways, this is where they told us stay right of the camera. Well, we can't see. So initially I was right behind Letty and she's kicking her feet galore, but when we're in the water, we can't see. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get kicked in the face. So I was like, okay, dive deeper, right? Lesson learned. I'm diving deeper. At least that way I'm my own worst enemy. So basically I would shoot my arms out and my left arm would catch the wall. And basically that was like my guide of like where I was spatially with everyone else around me. Sure enough, Michael K. Williams, he had gotten kicked in the face by Letty. So someone did get kicked in the face. And I know it's just that we just couldn't see. And it just so happened that he ended up behind her because I was below. So there was no one in between him anymore. At one point, Jonathan Majors ended up chose to swim even deeper than myself. So there was a moment where I felt like him go like way underneath me. And whenever we went, so this is what they said, keep swimming, we'll tap you on the shoulder when you can come up. Okay, so this is how much we couldn't see, guys, and just swimming, you just go for it. So all of a sudden we heard, and we're like, what was, like underwater, we were like, what was that? Well, when we finally did come up, Jonathan, I guess when he went to come up, the edge of the wall was sticking out, so he hit. When he went to come up, he hit the back of his head on the wall, and gave himself a significant little, bump there. But all of us were just like, ooh. So mine was running into actually the elevator was problematic for Letty as well. Journey, sorry, I should call her by her real name, but Journey, on the day of shooting, skid, and I hit straight on to the wall, so she skidded. So she actually scraped her forehead, and we were in the water for 12 hours that day, and she had the cut for 12 hours.
Wow.
What was your question again?
So
Sorry.
yeah, so the question from James that he had was, let me go ahead and scroll up. He wanted to know who
are you inspired by?
Oh, do you have that? Okay.
Yes. I think I am most inspired by my parents. They are unapologetically themselves. My mom had me at 16 years old, and she is a firecracker. She took the reins, and by the time she was 17 years old, my dad had joined the military once he knew that I was, it was a little bit harder than trying to just get a job and still go to college. So he joined the military. And by the time I was 11 months old, that's when we were out in Germany. And my mom was a 17-year-old in a different country, raising a child. And my dad would be gone for 6 months at a time, you know, doing whatever they were doing out there. Mm-hmm. So to be in a country where no one really is speaking the same language, you know, as a 17-year-old, where we also didn't have a lot of money. So it's not like we could go a lot of places. You know, I just, when in retrospect, when I think about it, like they created some of the best memories for me. And one of them is gaming, because you could get a video game and we can sit there, as when my dad was there, as a family and essentially do something together. So here my dad, you know, was behind, you know, the remote control, and my mom was writing down what each character was saying inside each town. And here's little me, you know, 3-4 years old, going like, oh my God, I'm helping so much. That monster gets killed with that one, right? Like, this is the spell. Pointing, you know. So that actually played a big part in my life. And I honestly, like, even when looking at people, I hate to compare it to a game, but I think there is some validity in understanding elements and understanding what type of element people are. That way you know how to work with them. You know, so I use it even in my acting if I realize there's certain personality types. And one of my favorite classes basically was identifying which element we naturally were, which mine was earth and fire, and then working on what we weren't good at, which was for me air and water, and realizing like what qualities we naturally have that we could adapt to fit into those other categories. So should we have an audition for those roles, we wouldn't be completely thrown for a loop. So for me, I feel like those are valuable lessons. When we got here to New Mexico, I told you guys my dad had a brain aneurysm at 23 years old. He basically lost most of his memory. His mentality went down to that of a 7-year-old. The only thing he really remembered was his military training. So he would wake us up every morning just to work out, beat a bag, spar. He was basically a child in an adult body, which was beautiful and detrimental as far as, you know, some of the things that he did and would do. But so what lessons did I learn? One, consistency, dedication, practice. Like those were things that were implemented. Every morning we were getting up and we're seeing, oh, we're closer to a split. Oh yeah, now we're sparring in the front yard. Hey, I just learned this awesome combo and look, it worked. You know, me and my brother were pretty fierce with one another. It was, you know, we were also in Kempo karate at the time too. And that became a little bit interesting because obviously we were learning things from him and they don't necessarily, you know, not part of Kempo karate. So they were like, no, you can't do that move. No, you can't do that. But I can see how ownership, like you had to be consistent, you had to have that dedication, and you had to be willing to pick up that challenge and face fear in the face. Like, yeah, you know, does it feel good to get hit? No, it does not feel good to get hit. But is the ability to dodge and learn like where people are going, and when you succeed in evading those things, there is that feeling of like, wow, I did it. So when you're talking about even me doing like my own stunts, like I in my youth, like I've always been athletic, and I do have a pretty good amount of training and being also very coordinated. So for the things that I've had to do, it's not been a big deal. Of course, if I was riding a motorcycle and jumping over fire, I definitely need stunt double for that. So my mom, when my mom and dad finally divorced, my mom got very, very strict. And I understand why. It had to do with, overall circumstances. She wanted to make sure that she was being a good mom. Anyways, all I can say is that she showed me the power of a woman to not only be able to work, but to be able to care for her kids and to also be honest with me on multiple levels. She wasn't the type to keep me childlike per se, like whatever we were going through, like it was like, hey, this is what's going on, so I understood, which is also why in like 8th grade, I had the opportunity to work in the back of the cafeteria, and basically I get all my meals for free, and I felt like that was a good way for me to help out my mom. Like $20 a week was a pretty damn good amount, especially when you have 2 kids. So
well, you said it. You did say a free meal is a good thing.
yeah, free's good. Free is always good. Even if I was like rich, free is always good. So that actually played a big role, and it was also just taught me like sometimes what we can give may seem very small, but when you take the initiative to do so, it can have a big impact. And I think even in that moment, like my mom never asked me like, hey, work in the back of the cafeteria so I don't have to pay for you to eat. No, that was something that I took on as my own. And there was also this sense of accomplishment too, of like, hey, I did something, and not only did I get, food, I finally got a candy bar at the end of the week for all my hard work. So, my mom, like I said, she also didn't allow me to do anything when I was a dancer for Dance Dance Dance. That was me being able to go out. Otherwise, I wasn't allowed to unless I was performing. So that also was an interesting thing. I felt like I had to earn it. I worked all these plethora of hours, to finally be able to perform, and then I could mingle with other people, So I say that they're my heroes, and the people that I look up to, because they taught me the most valuable lessons in my life of just who do I want to be, and what am I willing to do to get there? And ultimately it comes down to happiness as well. The happiness one kid did come from my dad. I've gotten grounded for a long period of time. My dad had gone in and he's like, why are you so unhappy in here? And I was like, because I'm grounded. What do you mean, why am I unhappy in here? I'm grounded right now. And he's like, yeah, but she forgot all about it. You're still mad. He's like, why don't you do something that you actually enjoy? That way your time spent in your room was well worth it. Because I was very ornery. There's no way I'm going to apologize for something that I did not think I was wrong for. Hence why I was such a headache to my mom, of course. But it taught me a huge lesson that most people, like somebody can really piss you off, and you give them a lot of power when you allow them to piss you off, because you're going to spend the next 6-10 hours while you're sleeping thinking about how you could have said something differently, how you could have done this or that. And honestly, they probably don't even remember. They probably didn't even mean to be that big of a dick.
Yeah.
They just said it, they did whatever they did, and that was it, done. And I think the same thing now, we'll go back to like the acting world, when it comes to auditioning, I don't like to give that kind of power also to someone who's very human, just like me. They got a job, they have to look for talent, and they're putting together a cast. I'm there to show them what I can bring to the table. It's not my job to try and mind read and figure out exactly what they want. I'm just here to bring myself to it, and not overthink it either. So I do feel blessed that I've learned that skill to just let it go. I go in, I do my jig, somebody's paid to watch me regardless, and then I let it go. And then if I get that surprise phone call of like, hey, you've been cast, I'm like, oh, what? Yes, I forgot all about that.
Well, acting obviously has its challenges. And for you and your journey, what has been the biggest challenge, and how did you overcome that?
The biggest challenge right now is we're going to get to a little bit of a heated topic, but right now they have what's in place called the right to work agreement, which when COVID had come about, they were trying to figure out the best way for all of us to get back to work, which created these, health protocols. I'm a person that I consider myself to be very holistic. very natural. I had already been exposed to COVID right at the beginning. I already, felt that I had natural immunity. So I had already worked all of 2020 following the initial protocols of wearing a mask, getting tested prior, all of this stuff. So I knew that it was possible for us to be on set, and still be protected and protect others. So when this right to work agreement came out, basically it's saying you have to be vaccinated. You have no choice if you want to work. Even when I saw it, I was like, wait, what? Like, you guys don't ask. Like, anytime I have a kissing scene with somebody, it's not like you say, hey guys, both of you, do you guys have herpes of the mouth?
Right.
Do you guys have a cut in your mouth and have AIDS? Do you guys have AIDS? Do you guys have anything that can be passed? Do you carry strep? Do you have strep? Like, these questions are never asked. So the fact that suddenly they're like, hey, you need to get something, and it's still possible that you can catch and spread, but you have to get it. I couldn't do it. I even had a gentleman that, because I did express, look, like, where there is risk, there must be choice. And there is no future data. Like, we don't know how it's going to interact with people. We don't know how it's going to interact with different age groups. We don't know all of these different variables. There's nothing on it because there's no studies for it. So I should have the choice to make a decision on my own health of what I'm going to do. And to each their own. We all respond from a place of trauma, right? Depending on what your experience is with other people. Like, I had seen most of my family get COVID right off the bat, about 25 to 30 of us, and we all survived and didn't have lingering COVID. We didn't have anything. So my experience with it is that it's kind of, a really bad cold or like flu, where there are other people who experienced it in their family and are terrified of it, so I understand their desire or want for something. But anyways, basically, I had, done some posts of just like, hey, here are some studies that are coming out. And this guy who had wrote a comic book basically told me to, like, I want you for this project, but you should just sit back and look pretty because people are watching. And I basically just told him, I was like, look, if I don't fight for body sovereignty, nobody's going to fight for body sovereignty for me. And if there's a time to fight, it's now, not when it's at my door. Where it's like, it's okay that if I have to be an example, which I hope that people do see that, yes, I have been hired and fired twice. One of them was a role offer where they had specifically gone to my agent and asked me for this role, which was a top billed cast. And then, after we had figured everything out, about 2 weeks later, we're like, oh, by the way, like, January, is the time when, it's going to happen and everyone needs to be vaccinated, and we don't want to push it on you, but if you don't get vaccinated, you don't have the part anymore. So basically I got fired because I didn't go get it. And that is what it is. They currently extended the right to work agreement. They needed everybody to be up to date. So those are the new terms now. So up to date meaning that if you've already done, the 2-part shot and there's a booster, you needed to have your booster. And if you already had your booster, then you need your 4th shot. And everybody needed to be up to date by March 15th. And then they won't be revisited until April 22nd. So what's the hardest part? I'm sorry, I know these are long. What's the hardest part of all of this? Well, 2 years ago when this did first hit, the first hardest part for me was my life has been geared towards having an audience. It's been geared towards performing outdoors, at bars, at different restaurants. I was a singer at Vernon's Hidden Valley Steakhouse here in New Mexico. Acting, obviously, we're in groups of people whenever we're on set. Modeling, you do have, people around you that are taking care of you. And suddenly, this comes and the film industry completely did shut down. So there was no auditions. There wasn't any work. In general, and at least very, very little. I did land 2 things in 2020, so at least there was a little bit of things that were coming out. But the question is who am I when I'm not performing? That was my life. That was basically what I had geared it towards. I didn't go on vacations because I wasn't sure when I was going to get an audition. I didn't cut my hair because I needed to fit the look that I go for, which is pretty much gender neutral, Native American. I didn't have a lot of room to change what I look like. It was just a moment of like, wow, I did all of this and for what? Like now we literally can't travel, and now I don't have those memories of traveling. And now, instead of me playing with hair colors, in my youth and doing all this crazy stuff, I've been pretty straight and narrow. The answer for me was that at the end of the day, we're spiritual beings, and it really, I had to reevaluate what brings me happiness. Sometimes, a passion of ours can bring us happiness, but when something like this happens, where do you go to? So it kind of felt like what I was experiencing in high school all over again. Like, I got singing taken away from me and I had to find other things. So suddenly, like, acting was not a thing. Singing was not a thing. So I actually went back to, I used to make jewelry with hemp, so hemp jewelry, and stones. So this time I was like, I want to work with wire, and I've always had an affinity for stones. So I taught myself basically how to paint, how to work with resin, how to make wire wrapped jewelry. And then as I was really learning about metals and stones, I actually started taking courses at Upper Clarity, which is a school of stone medicine. And I became a certified stone practitioner as of this last November. Which is something that not a whole lot of people know about or do or practice. So I felt like it fit me. It was something that was a beautiful avenue for me to explore because it was a different way that I could also help those around me on a vibrational level, especially when you're coming, with different mental health issues, and emotions that are coming up in times like we're going through right now. So I feel I had to go through these trials because I wouldn't have explored those avenues. Also, I did shave both sides of my head. So I took the moment to be like, you know what? I basically had a long-haired mohawk. This side is now grown out quite a bit where it's now here from 2 years ago, but I had it both. And then this side I'm barely letting grow out. So I had this side completely gone for 2 years and I just started letting it grow out this January. So I finally did all the things. I'm getting a tattoo come this April. So I'm like, I'm just gonna do it all, damn it.
Have you started writing again? Because I know you won some awards for writing too as well.
Yes. Yes. So actually, I have a couple of good friends that are producers that basically are like, as soon as your scripts are done, we'd like to get them looked at. Basically right now I'm in completion on the multiple different ones because then suddenly I get inspired and I'm ADD. So it's like, I'm working on this one. So I do need to focus, bring them to completion. I think I'm kind of like on track though. Like I don't actually want them to come out during these times where we're spending more money on COVID protocols than necessary. So with that said, I'm okay that they're sitting back, but I am right there where I'm really thinking about truly writing, like graphic novels, and really exploring that world because I love to tell stories, obviously. As I tell you guys a gazillion of them, I'm sorry.
No, obviously you have passion, you show that through your arts, your singing, and that carries, to the best of your ability, how you express these passions in a lot of your fields. So what about your connections? I mean, your life experiences that have led up to some of your roles, you carry that into, the roles that you're going to take on. A lot of your background and history, you can see that in your performances. Because obviously, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, was the question that I had was the challenges of changing roles and appearances throughout your career, for you, because like you obviously took on the role of Yahima in Lovecraft and Country, and that's a different role than saying playing the challenging role of Sense, as
Sure.
the mother, so as you go through these roles, what about these challenges of having to change? Is there ones that really stood out for you that you're like, I really enjoy playing this role 100%? Because, like I said, sometimes you play a role and you're like, okay, I can let it go. And then sometimes you're like, man, I nailed this. I really had a good time with this role.
Yes. So the question is, which character was the one that I vibed with the most, or how do I transition from character to characters?
It's basically, the challenges of transitioning from character to character.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's not easy. You know, acting's not easy, and you go from one role to another. And so that transition.
So I'll give you a little philosophy of mine. So from the moment we enter this world, whether it's naturally or cut out, or whether you know which way it was, it doesn't matter. From the moment that you were born, you have had to figure out how to get what you want. You have to figure out how to be loved. You have to figure out how to be cared for. You have to figure out how to function in whatever space that you're given. So anybody who wants to act, you have the ability. If you're still alive, you've been at least somewhat successful because you're here. You figured out how to function. You figured out how to work with whatever you have. So anybody who wants to certainly play with it, I would say that you already have the tools. So for me, when I'm looking at a character, the only thing that changes between me and the character, the only difference is how long I stay within a certain emotion. Because as human beings, we've already experienced everything, right? Like, no one can say, oh, I've never felt fear. Oh, we've all felt fear before, like at least some capacity of it. You know, oh, we've never felt lust. Get out of here. Everyone's felt that. You know, love, different relationships, different types of love. We've all felt that meh, even moments where you're just maybe not connected to anything at all. So fear, happiness, lust. I think I pretty much hit most of the main ones. Essentially, when I'm looking at it, I'm saying, okay, when have I felt what this character is feeling? Like, where does that sit in my body? And that's how I will step into a character, is by understanding where it was. So whenever I'm happy, I'm confident, I'm public speaking, or I'm doing this, well, yeah, my chest is a little bit elevated. I'm ready to perform. My energy is forward. Where if I don't want to be seen, I'm not feeling good. You know, I'm more sit back. You know, I maybe more angled. I don't want anybody to see me, so I'm making myself as small as possible. So those things will be the first tools of identifying the difference between my normal self, or where I'm currently at, to the character that I'm going to be playing. So the first step is not necessarily pulling stuff outside myself. I really think that to be believable, you have to not just create something from thin air, because we're talking, nobody can be you better than you. If you see everybody go in for an audition and it's reading for a nun, right? And everybody goes into that audition and they're like, yes, I love you. I love you, God, and I'm always here for you, you know, whatever. But when you see 50 of those, they don't know what the hell to cast, you know? It would be different if you just brought yourself to the table and you're like, I love you, God. I am here for you, but you got to help me out here. Like, you know what I mean? When you have a different attitude, suddenly people can be like, oh, that's relatable. We've all had that moment here, you know, reaching out. And that's what becomes interesting. So who are you? What are those undertones? What do you already associate with? And then you can start layering. So my favorite character is Yakima. Why? Because it challenged me in every capacity I can possibly think of. I don't know if you guys, did you happen to see my audition? I do believe I have it posted on Instagram.
Yeah. So yeah, when you were posting a couple of your auditions on Instagram.
So it's a black and white one, or does it look black and white? No, it's not. But it's where I'm facing backwards and my hair is like, you almost see, it's a weird way to start out an audition, but basically I'm facing backwards. When I first got this audition for that character, I believed the character to be more ethereal than what ended up coming out in the final production of it. There's a line in there where the character says, I am a child of the anaconda. So I took that the character was part snake. So for that audition, I do incorporate snake-like movements and even tonality in my dialogue. So that's the first time that I've really been able to also have an audition where I got to play with the things that I love the most, which is also animal work. So a really beautiful way to step into a character that gives you a pretty good layer is working with different animal types. So for instance, like let's say I'm playing a cat. Well, it's sly, it's sleek, it's mischievous, it prowls, so when I'm layering a character with that, that's the energy behind it. And I know where the energy is sitting again in the body, where with a snake, would they lead with their head? There isn't a different body, or there's not limbs. It's not like you're leading with your arms or your shoulders or something. You're leading with the head. So I think that would be a beautiful audition for someone to see, in order to see how that was layered and how I would actually prefer to play with most of my characters. Of course, it depends on what they want. So the first day that I had gotten to set, I hadn't even actually gotten to set yet. I was in the makeup trailer and I was meeting the director for the first time. And she basically told me, anything that even can be considered a monster, or anything that's mythical, ethereal, or otherworldly, just go ahead and get rid of it. We're going to make this as human as possible. We want people to really feel for this character. We want people to not think of it outside of themselves. We want people to relate that even with these things that are different, with the physicality, and me having, a vagina and penis side by side, that people could still understand the plight of the character. So I basically let go all of my work. And that's why it's so important not to think of something out of thin air. You really have to understand where the character is coming from and where you are with the character, because in that split moment, every decision that I had made that was layered with the snake was gone. I completely took it out. So my performance for the audition is actually pretty different than what's on screen because of that note. I made it human. And I don't know if you looked at all the articles that came out with that, but it hit hard. It hit hard for people to really, I get emotional. I had about 3 weeks of people telling me their stories of, transgendered friends and family that were abused and murdered. There's 3 forms of silence that the character goes through, of the silence of people not knowing your language, so somebody else communicating for you, which was I'm the only character in the whole show that didn't have subtitles. It was just through Atticus. It was, verbalizing what I was saying, but I have over 3 minutes worth of dialogue. So, he's not able to say 3 minutes worth of what I was saying. Then there's the physical silence. So here I am screaming, and which wasn't my voice, actually. That's actually a tale that I'll tell you guys about in a moment. But the physical violence, that when people hear something that they don't want to hear, they'll just strike you down and make you shut up, essentially. And then the third form of silence, which is death. I did end up trusting them, and basically I get my throat slit. And it's like, wait, I'm the person who taught them all the magic that they know. I'm the one who basically taught, the main character of this entire show everything that he knows, and yet one little slice of the throat, and there goes the whole backstory, the whole thing. So, with that character, I actually thought I was going to get a lot of creeps, or people that were into people being different in their oddities. But that's not what I got. What I got was very human stories of history, of their ancestors being silenced, and the plight that's happening now of just miscommunication and a division where there doesn't need to be one. Because at the end of the day, we are all human. We all have feelings. We all can love and care. And, that's what it really boils down to. And yet we have all these rules and people angry over nothing. So anyways, not all those articles were the best. That, it was a difficult experience.
Yeah. So if you guys get a chance on HBO, Lovecraft Country, you can check that out. Definitely, like I said, some strong performances. And when you bringing something like that, I mean, there is a lot of emotion involved as an actor, but I mean, being able to portray and stand up for what you believe in through acting, is important. And it's not just what the director wants, but sometimes you have to be like, you know what, I want to portray this character this way. You know, like,
if you have the power to do so. That is not always how it goes. No, that's like if you're Will Smith and you can just bitch slap somebody on a screen. No, 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 no. You know, I would love to think that even I have the ability to just choose parts. No, I will say that I think it's very true that if it's meant to you, if it's meant for you, it will be. I do very well with authority. And it's probably because of my background of being in a military family, being surrounded by other military personnel. Their air and the way they communicate is very particular. And I think even on a subconscious level, I picked up on that, and I think it's pretty much ingrained in who I am. So most of I would say that my typecast is pretty much gender neutral, and not saying that like people confuse me as a male, or it's more so that, so I do consider myself two-spirit, meaning that I do feel that I am equal parts with that divine masculine and the divine feminine. Depending on how I have to deal with situations will depend on whether or not I respond through action or whether I respond through intuition. So I do feel like when I first started out, it was more geared towards my look of just being, you know, not an ugly female. So yeah, you know, I did go for quite a few parts that were prostitutes, or, you know, the mistress or the hot chick. Once I was being seen for characters, so Angelique Midthunder, she is an amazing casting director, and basically all things that are titles get thrown right out the door. So the scene that you were seeing where I'm the owner of a tow truck company, that would, the character description was a 35-year-old Mexican male. Obviously I wasn't 35 at the time, and I'm not a man, but I was still cast for the part. You know, so she was one of those that would call me in, and I'll say, you know, as a wild card of like, hey, here's a different option. And that's happened more than a handful of times. So for Snatchers, which everything that I've been a part of for Snatchers hasn't come out yet. But originally it was written for a 50-year-old Mexican male. And then they couldn't find that. So then they were like, well, let's switch it up. We'll look for women, you know, 40s to 50s, Hispanic. Couldn't find that. So then it was actually one of the wardrobe people that was like, how about, look, we know we have that here. Why don't you look at 20s to 30s? And I was in that group. And that's where I got the opportunity to audition for that character. And sure enough, I landed it. You know, so more often than not, when they're bringing me in, it's like, hey, we don't know if we want a male. We don't know if we want a female. It could be either one. And the same thing with Breaking Bad. When I had first gone in there, it was an eclectic mix of everybody, every race, every shape, every size. You know, it was basically, hey, show me what you got, because we're pretty much open. And I get cast for those roles. So even Independence Day, Resurgence was like that as well. When I went in, the original lines that they were having me read for were for a male. And that was an interesting experience. I went into the audition room. It was a bunch of guys, and I didn't know. I just know that I'm reading for a tech officer. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, so I go in and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, you're auditioning for this. I'm like, yeah. They're like, all right, cool. They're like, well, I wish you the best, you know. So I went in, I did my thing. I came out, you know, good conversation. Long story short, I ended up getting cast for the role. And there was one in particular that was not that happy. I didn't end up talking to him for like 3 years because he didn't realize I was auditioning for the same part. And for some reason, he took that as me really competing with him. And it's like, look, you just don't know what they're looking for. We're not in competition with one another. We're all in, you know, in this together. It just so happened that I was something that they were looking for, you know, so.
So did, so Mr. Christopher, he's asking in regards, so did you lose any friends online or otherwise based on the simple fact of your character having both, you know, genitalia in that sense?
No, I didn't lose any friends at all. I think actually anybody who knows me personally, like, already knows who I am as an overall person and how I relate to the world around me. So I don't feel like I'm sure that even if there was a secret that nobody around me knew, I'm so forward with everything that I think they would be like, oh, I didn't know. Well, tell me more about it. And because I'm willing to share that journey, which everything in this area is a journey, right? Like at the end of the day, like I really don't feel like our souls are gendered. I think our bodies are gendered, but not necessarily like who we are on the inside. So no, I didn't lose any friends. I did see that there were obviously like negative articles that were like, how did this like cisgendered female, end up playing this intersex character? They should have gotten an intersex, actor in order, to play this role. And it really is unfortunate because I feel like people have lost what it means to also like be in the art world. Like, what does it mean to have art? And even when it comes to acting, like, I mean, if we think of its origins, it was people around a campfire telling a story of their interactions within their tribe or within the tribes that were surrounding or invaders. And not once are we saying, hey, we're going to put on this skit to tell this story. Can we get some Spaniards to come over and play a Spaniard? No, it was other people, within their tribe telling a story, and it had nothing to do whether you were actually that person or not. So even when it comes to like being Native, I think that's a really interesting way to look at things, and it causes separation. My viewpoint is that all of us are indigenous from somewhere. I don't care who you are, you're indigenous from somewhere. At one point, your ancestors relied on the earth, the land, the people around it, and it was pivotal that we respected it, cultivated, and allowed that to grow and flourish. So for me, that's what connects us all. I'm a Mescalero Apache descendant, and it frustrates me so much that my great-grandfather made basically a choice for his children that he didn't want them being sent off to boarding school or mistreated for being ethnic, being Native. And he basically, told his wife, hey, they look Spaniard. So everyone should know that they're Spaniard. They're Spaniard. And basically they grew up just telling everybody that they were Spaniard. With that being said, obviously, like us, the newer generations, learn of our roots, and we're going, wait, what happened? Like, why is this part of ourselves like lost? And even on my mom's side, my grandmother on my mom's side is from Mazatlan, Mexico. My mom's born in a group of 10. All of them are first generation American. So my grandmother on that side only speaks Spanish and has the native from Sinaloa, that Sinaloa native. And basically they got to America, and because they were looked down on for being Mexican, they decided that they would lose their accents, speak as normal as possible, and not teach their children Spanish. So none of us cousins speak Spanish at all. So essentially, here we are, we're kind of floating in this weird world. I wanted to reconnect to my Native roots. I have over 30% that genetically that is Native. And for being Apache, they say you have to be 25% in order to reconnect, but they're not actually talking about like your actual blood quantum. What they're talking about is, it's actually a weird way to like view it, but it goes based on the last person that was actually registered. So my great-great-grandfather was the one that was registered, makes him 100. My great-grandmother was then 50%. My grandmother is 25. My dad's there, 16, 15%, whatever. And then I'm an 8th, so essentially I don't exist and I can't reconnect because of that, which is really, really unfortunate, because I feel like being Native is a lifestyle. It's a way of life and how you choose to live. And I'm blessed to live in New Mexico, where culture is still really prevalent. Like, if you ask me what people in Spain do, what they eat and how they function, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I have no idea. I'm not from there. I didn't grow up with it that way. But when it comes to, Mexican traditions, and when it comes to, even Native traditions and superstitions and how we function, that's what I know. So it's an interesting conversation and perspective for, to be put in a box and be like, do you look Native enough, and what type of Native are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's not fair to anybody, and it divides us. There's over 400 Native American tribes here, and you're pitting us against one another. So there you go, Sassy.
Yeah, my grandmother was she was a registered Native, but she was at the end of where you could get registered. So
Oh my God.
my actual, I don't know how many greats back, was born a Native slave to a plantation owner from England. And when his dad passed, he wasn't given his birthright because he was a Native slave.
See, like, I mean, this breaks my heart because we're losing a piece of ourselves, and that's the cultural, it's culture stripping. We can't reconnect even if we choose to. It's, do I feel like I'm an outcast? No, actually, I'll say that anybody that's from here, Native or otherwise, I'm not questioned, and I'm not belittled in any way for not being registered. I will say it's been hard in the acting world because they want tribal members because they get different incentives when they can actually give their number.
Right.
So I hate to say that I willingly do give my genetic test to show, yes, look, it's not me just putting on a brown face. Yes, I can appear very light in the winter, but when summertime comes, I'm as gold as they can be. It's in me whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. But I will give that because I do understand that there are other rules that Natives are having to go through. By providing those numbers, the least I can do is show that I'm not just stepping on their toes, that yes, in fact, I am this. And Angelique Midthunder was one that also I feel like helped me in that capacity. But she did, she was receptive in me offering that, and her not feeling bad that I'm not registered. But she works with a lot of Native talent here in New Mexico. And I don't know, I would really value her. I don't even know if she'd ever watched this or even comes across, but I do feel that a lot of my success in the beginning of my career is attributed to her, because she allowed me to step out of the pretty box and actually show like what I'm capable of doing with authority. And I do feel that that's been my stereotype ever since. So wow, I got really gritty in the voice. I'm sorry. It's tight.
I do have one question though. I know I heard you in your other interview say that at one point in time you felt you were a part of the supernatural.
Yes.
And at what age did you feel that? Because I know you were told, oh, you're just a kid, you're making it up. So when can you recall your first actual experience that you have, and how much have you evolved in working with that now? Because I know you also said that you run energy and protect yourself. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I was 7 years old, turning 7 years old. We had just moved from Colorado here to New Mexico. And we started living with I call her my grandma Carmen. She is my grandma through and through. She raised my mom, but she's the first of 10 kids, and my mom's the baby of 10. And she just so happens she's the one who raised my mama. But we were living with her while we were figuring out where we were going to move to. So she had a room that they added onto the house. It was this really long, it was like an abnormally long room because it took up the whole side of the house. And basically, like, if you were to enter the front door of the home, you would walk past the living room and this bar, and then there was this long chute of a hallway, and it basically like led off to just different rooms. So right as you entered the hall, you made a left, and that was what my cousin's room was. And then right at the back corner of a room were these two glass doors that opened up, and that's what led to the long room that we were staying in. So I've never been afraid of the dark. I feel very at home ever since I was a kid. I was a kid that gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning. My mom would find me with, a bunch of bologna strings and, the cheese wrappers, a little blankie and cartoons on. Like, it's just, that was me. Okay. I loved it, whatever I could reach, and I'd go watch whatever I was wanting to watch. But obviously we moved to a different place. I couldn't exactly just turn on a TV in the middle of the night, but I always have to pee anyway. So it doesn't stop me from getting up at some point. So, we'd already been there about 1 to 2 months. And, I had gotten up in the middle of the night and I went to use the restroom. I used the restroom. And then as I entered my cousin's room, I turned around, like went around the corner of her bed, and right at that, there was like that one step and the glass doors that open, right? Well, right at the edge of the step, there was a small boy that was sitting there, and he looked, it was like seeing a shadow, like, it's really dense. So you can't see like the specifics of like eyes or the eyebrows. But it looked a lot like my brother. So I thought it was my brother. And so I was like, David, is that you? Didn't answer me. And I was like, David, is that you? Didn't answer me again. So now I'm upset because it's my cousin's room. I'm worried I'm going to wake her up, and I was like, David, and it still just kept sitting there. So I looked through the glass door and I could see through the glass door the bed that me and my brother shared. And I could see him laying in the bed, except for I could see the color of his skin. I could see that, like, his eyebrows. I could see that it was genuinely him. So I knew that this thing I was seeing wasn't him. So I turned back to it. I looked at it, and all of a sudden its head started spinning in circles. So its body is stationary and its head is spinning. And when it finally stopped, its body was sitting in one direction, its head was facing backwards. And even still, like, I thought it was a figment of my imagination. Like, I really didn't think that it was real. So I went up behind it to where its head was facing, and I put my hands in front of its body, and I like swished my fingers through its chest. And all of a sudden it disappeared when I completed the swish, and instantly, I mean, I then freaked out. I realized it wasn't a shadow on the wall. It wasn't something from the corner of my eye. Like, it was very, very real. I ran around the bed. I jumped in bed. I, covered my head with the covers, and I was just like, I didn't make that up. Like, I know that there was something there, and I don't know what it was, So that was the first morning that I got up and I told my mom, like, what happened, what I had seen. And her response was, that it was a figment of my imagination. Yeah. Well, that thing followed me for years. Okay. Wow. When we first moved into our house in Rio Rancho, we only had one bed set up. I hadn't gotten a new bed for like my new room. So I was laying next to the bed, or the wall, and then it was my brother, and then this like open space. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I had to pee. So I went to get up, and right as I went to get up, I saw it standing in the center of the room. And I froze again. Like, I just, didn't know what to do. I froze, and all of a sudden his hand came up and was like going back and forth, like saying no. And I freaked out. I hid under the covers the rest of the night. I didn't come out, and over these things would just keep happening. Finally, at 16 years old, and mind you, it would move things all the time, change my radio stations. I mean, there's a number of things that it would do regularly that were just a nuisance. So 16 years old, I don't know exactly why I was staying at my grandma's, but they put me in the room right next to the bathroom. So I was like, okay, I'm a big girl. I'm not going to drink any water, no tea before bed. I'm going to sleep all the way until the morning. I did all those things. It did not stop me from waking up and having to pee in the middle of the night. So I want to say for about an hour, like, I woke up, and for about an hour, I just like lay there with my eyes closed of like, you're old enough. You can wait until the sun comes up. You are not getting up. Like, all this dialogue, right? Finally, by the end of the hour, I was like, you're stupid. Like, you're just scaring yourself. Like, go use the restroom, go back to bed. Like, you're wasting your time. It's like, okay. So I got out of bed, I went and used the restroom, and whatever. I'm washing my hands, looking at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, you're such an idiot. Like, you're making a problem where there isn't one. Like, there's nothing scary that's happened. Like, we're fine, So I finished, I turned off the light, I opened the door, and it's standing right in the center of the hall. And I was like, no, I like closed the door. I bolted towards the bed, I hit my head under the covers. And for like 15 minutes, I was just like, no, I concocted it. My imagination must be messing with me. I thought about it for over an hour, like it's in my head, yeah. Like I made all these excuses. And then finally, at about 15 minutes in, I finally relaxed enough to like pull down the covers and I could feel it. I knew that there was something there. And I finally convinced myself to stop being a baby and open your eyes. I opened my eyes and it was there. And it smacked the shit out of me. That was like the first time that I really felt physically hit by something. And that was the last time that it appeared to me. It would continue to move things and it was more of a nuisance. But I don't know if my fear factor from that moment prevented me from seeing. So it was more like me just witnessing like other things that it was doing. But it stayed with me all the way until I ended up moving in with my partner. Her name is Simone Gurule, and her experiences are very different. She like has seen angels and, you know, she's talked to her deceased uncle and relayed messages. So hers is very, very kind and nice. But when I started living with her, suddenly that disappeared. And then I had a plethora of other things that suddenly were coming into orbit. But that one in particular had ceased to exist. So I want to say all the way until about 2 years ago, it's always been the question of how do you fight something that's not physical? Like I can consider myself a strong female, but when it's physical, like how do you fight that? Basically what it is it's running energy, and we have to understand that we are bodies of water, right? So if you think of yourself as a pond, right, and everyone's washing your hand and they're drinking from the pond and they're bathing in the pond, well, that water isn't going anywhere. So that bacteria is festering. It's stagnant, it's staying in one spot, and our bodies work exactly that same way. So when we experience a trauma, it basically makes your blood freeze and it like crystallizes. And basically that's why, like, let's say you're in a subway and someone slams into your arm or something, your physical reaction is like, you know, you want to punch somebody in the face. But when you don't, obviously as an adult, you can't do that. So you prevent yourself. And then next thing you know, because this blood froze in this area, suddenly your shoulder starts giving out and you're like, I've never even done anything that should be happening, you know. So really that's why even like acupuncture works, because it moves energy and it unfreezes the blood. So how do we protect ourselves from spirit though? When you learn how to change yourself from a pond or a limited well of water and you become a river, meaning you're running energy where you're connecting to the earth, you're releasing whatever toxins need to be released, you're pulling in that clean energy, and then basically you're pulling in energy from the cosmos. Then at that point, you got the cosmos acting almost like the peak of a mountain. It's becoming the top part of your aura. The earth energy has become the bottom part of your aura. There you have the double Taurus, which is every person and every item in this earth. But when you can consciously release the things that are harming us, therefore you create this beautiful veil. When you have the veil, you can see through it and those things can't touch you. They can't break through the veil. When you realize that you have that power and control to release, suddenly you're also not as afraid. And with that lack of fear, you can fill it with love and realize that we're also not alone. So do ask on your ancestors. Do ask on your whatever you believe in, your angels, your guides. And basically that's when they can step in. So people do also forget that we're in a dimension of free will. So the reason why prayer is good is because you're asking for things and basically everything that's out there can begin to help you. Many people don't realize that words spoken are spells in a capacity. So beware of what you say. Be wise with your words. You know, sometimes when you bring out a negativity, you're going to get that back and it's going to be tenfold, you know. So these are all, I guess, little lessons, but yes, you turn yourself into a river and that's how you protect yourself. And that's when I took a year's worth of psychic courses with Jogo Koskos, and he really focused on showing that we're all capable and psychic to a certain degree. We're just more skilled in certain areas, whether you can hear it, whether you can see it, or there's a bunch of different ways actually to communicate. but just showing that you don't need a tool, you have it within you. And when you can begin to trust that, gosh, it's unlimited of what you can do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that, I mean, wow, so many different areas that we're going into. It's exciting. I just, like I said, because when you look at the interview and you say, okay, which direction will you go or whatever, but like we've gone in like Sassy, I know, great question. And did you have anything else, Sassy, any other questions that you had that you wanted to ask?
No, I was just going to ask her about the time where she slipped on her dog toy and had a big old thing on her foot. And then talk about the time that you did interviews on the red carpet for the Hip Hop Awards.
So say that last one again. I'm sorry.
When you interviewed people for the Hip Hop Awards.
Oh, yes. Okay. So the dog toy one first. I get up in the middle of the night to this day, guys. That's just who I am as a person. It's my norm. My dog left one of those toy T-bones, and it's huge. Okay, like it's like at least 3 inches this way as far as like the thickest part, and then it has like the T-bone part that comes out this way. Well, anyways, I was coming down the stairs, and basically what happened was the right side of my foot stepped on it, and it pushed it up like that while the other part was still going down. So I ripped all the ligaments in the pad of my foot. I honestly, when you burn yourself and your hand shoots up without you even realizing first. So my foot, when I stepped on it, my foot shot up like a bungee cord, and it knocked out my other foot. Like I leaped higher than the foot that was coming down. So I slid down the last step, and like I laid there for a good second of just like, did I hurt myself? Like, did I hurt my back? Because I did land on the stair. Like, did I hit my foot anywhere? Like, what happened? And then I obviously saw the dog toy, and like I knew that that's what I stepped on, but I didn't hit it anywhere. So I was like, okay, like I think I'm okay. So like I got up. I naturally walk on my tiptoes. So I, started walking out. I was like, oh, that does feel weird. That's gonna be tender. So I was just like, I have a high pain threshold, so I actually completely disregarded it. I I changed it was really hot, it was hot earlier that evening, so it was really cold, so I was raising it up. So anyways, I went back to bed, and when I woke up, it didn't even look like anything, but I was like, oh no, I'm a disaster. I just couldn't, I could not walk on it at all. I did end up going in. There was no fractures or broken bones, but I did tear the ligaments. And what sucked is because it was on the pad of the foot, like not even a boot could help, because it didn't stop my weight from actually being on it. So I spent the entire beginning of this whole January not being able to move and having to rely on other people when you're used to doing things on your own, and when you're ADD, doing a gazillion weird things that people wouldn't think to do. It is brutal. It was brutal. So that was my
bruise too on the top of your foot.
Yeah, it ended up going through the top. Yeah, it was insane. At first it looked like nothing, and then it totally bled all the way to the surface.
Wow. So
that was brutal. The other question was, remind me again.
Oh, whenever you did interviews on the red carpet for the Hip Hop Awards.
Yes. So I interviewed for that, and I also was an interviewer for the Comic-Cons that are here in New Mexico. And being able to speak with people in this capacity makes them very, very human, and you realize there's nothing really different. It's just like anything else, where you dedicate your time and your passion. When people see that passion, that's what they resonate with, and then that's where you gain success, because you do it whether you make money or not. You basically just put yourself out there, and that's the difference between being desperate and creating your own work too. So I think there's a very different feeling. I think most people come at this industry with like a look at me, or like, I'm speaking to you. Can I get your info now? Like, can I go ahead and get your phone number, and can we hang out? And it's like, no, you have to know your place. So as an interviewer, I think I was trusted with it, because they knew that while I'm obviously interested in all of the things that these people do, I also am cognizant that they're people just like us. And I wanted to make it very clear that I wasn't a diehard fan just trying to get at them either. So it kind of, I feel like it also has to do with like set etiquette too. And just the way this. I never understood why they separated like main stars away from background. In the beginning, I didn't understand that at all. I thought it was actually quite rude. And then when I did the control group, I obviously made friends with all of the background people. And I don't mean to say people as in like separate, everyone that was working. But I was being sent, it was one of the last days, and I had all my action scenes, and they're like, hey, you need to go get all your weapons on you. You need to go to, the props trailer. And right as I had come out, there was a couple of, the background there, and they were like, hey, like my relative came, like, come and meet them. And literally, like, I was being rushed in this moment. Like, there was no time for me to like go and mingle with anybody, And I was like, I'm sorry, like, I have to get my stuff done. No, just real quick. Well, right after that, like, you could just feel this tension and this, like I did something wrong, but I was doing my job, and my job, what they're paying me for, is to get the props and to come back and act and be on set. So I realized that sometimes when you friend those who aren't quite at your level yet, they will take certain liberties that you do not have, and they don't understand when you're saying, hey, I actually have to do my job now. Right. I saw that also with Tina Fey. I worked with Tina Fey on Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, which was one of the other clips that you had posted. I was quite nervous actually to meet her because yeah, she's actually a really beautiful woman. She had come into the makeup trailer, no makeup or anything. She introduced herself right away, and I'll be honest, I didn't know it was her. I actually thought she was like maybe one of the makeup ladies named Tina. Like, I was just like, okay, like, nice to meet you, And then she sat in the chair next to me, and I was like, oh, she sat in the chair. She's not like a makeup person. And then like when they came in, they're like, Tina, then it like clicked. Yes, you're on a film with Tina Fey, and she is sitting right next to you, but she was amiable. Like, she was very kind, very friendly. Like, there was no tension or, which was exactly the opposite of what I thought was going to happen, because there was other people that had worked with her. They did have lines, so it wasn't like they were just background. So they were in scenes with her, but they took certain liberties that when they were just hanging out, she was running over lines like in her head, and they had questions for her. They wanted to pick her brain, or get this moment. And basically what I was told was just like that she's unfriendly. She snapped at them. Like, she was like, don't talk to me, I'm busy, kind of thing, And so the first thought in my head is like, oh my God, like, I'm going to be working with a diva, and she's that type of person. Like, how do I do my job and connect without like, aggravating or being a problem to the situation? And no, that's not her at all. Like, she was super kind, she just has her own method of working, which is when she's on set, she's running her lines. She's the lead actress.
She's working.
Yeah, she needs to be working. She needs to make sure that when they say action, she knows what the hell she's doing. So while she can be funny, and while, she's obviously skilled at what she does, it doesn't mean that it comes without effort either. So I realized really quickly that know your place, be humble, and even if you have an opportunity, it doesn't mean that you should take it. It just is what it is. I value the memory of working with her. That the scene actually that gets played, that was one of the more mild scenes. But I will say, like, she is one feisty. Like, when she first delivered that line to me, where she was just like, like, she threw the bag at me and everything. I was like, whoa, she is feisty. But yeah, they got more of like the toned down version. But the actual day was really interesting.
Did you get a chance to have any interaction with Margot Robbie? I mean, was there anything with her?
No, because my role was inside of that one building where she was talking to her superior. That's basically the only day I was really on, so I didn't get to meet anybody else.
Okay. But still, I mean, having that with Tina Fey is pretty, you have that. And for her to go in and just chill and hang out, I mean, to me, that'd be pretty cool. I'd probably be a little nervous, but at the same time, great experience just to bring in, and but speaking of that, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had, like, the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the lead actress. So, I mean, like, you had the control group, and you were in there, and you were, like, the with Brad Dourif, who's obviously the voice of Chucky that I love. I'm a huge, horror fan. Chucky is huge for me. But I hear so many great stories about him as far as just being insightful, a great brain to pick. So has that been a great experience for you on set with him? I'm sure taking to him and him taking to you, was, a great experience. Because, like I said, I'm not here to just talk about him, but I'm sure that there had to have been things that he left for you, some breadcrumbs to follow, with his acting experiences and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. So it was lovely getting there, like when everybody got there, because we all actually began to really develop friendship. Obviously, as genuine friendship develops, and not just somebody who's a fan and wanting to pick your brain, suddenly you have conversations, and the interaction is therefore very different at that point. He was very open with all of us of what he was okay with, not okay with. He is 88, like ADD. He paces nonstop, but he also learns his lines, the entire script, before he ever even steps on set, which was interesting because what we were experiencing on set was very different than what he was going to have to experience. Because basically, when they tried changing the script with him there, he's like, nope, my lines stay exactly the same. I already memorized them. I'm not changing them, which is lovely when you have the ability to do so. None of us that were working with him had that right or ability to do so. So basically, you're getting, literally, you would have worked on the scenes that you thought you were going to shoot the next day, and then come 6 o'clock in the morning, you get taken to set and you find that you're not even shooting the scenes you spent 4 hours on the night before. You are shooting something else entirely, or you're shooting that scene, but everything you memorize is not even what you're going to be saying. So there was times when I was memorizing on the spot, like one read through, and then put it down, and we're going for it. So to see, like, just also the difference, it really depends, what's your caliber on set, like, what are you capable of doing, and he obviously has earned that spot. Like, he's been in the game a really long time, and when they hired him for his capabilities and what he offers. So but he's able to just like be emotional and cry like on demand. So there was a point where I was just like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't, how are you always so like emotionally available? And he's like, you know what? Come here, let me show you something. So we had a break, went off to one of the side rooms, did a meditation where, completely just relaxed every part of the body, fill it up with a purple liquid. And he asked me to verbalize like my favorite, most happiest memory. And guys, it was, what popped up in my head at the moment was me sitting in the front yard under a tree reading a book and seeing my friends come down the street. Like, it wasn't anything crazy, so I said it, not really, it brings me happy memories. I miss that time of my life of being able to do that, but he goes, why that's your happiest memory, right? And I was like, why? And he's like, because you'll never have it anymore. Whoa, like it hit me like a wave. Like I was like, what the? And he's like, you may desire the feeling of it, what it is to be a kid, but you never want to be seen as a kid again. So you will never have the ability to just be in that moment, seeing your friends come down the street. And it just, like, everything that he was saying, like, I realized in that moment that he triggered a sadness in me that was actually derived from happiness. Which was something completely different than any other acting class I had ever taken. Any other acting class was all about the physicality, getting yourself into a position that ignites a certain emotion, where you're pulling everything in. Or they had things where, organic acting, where you had to, think of traumas in your past, but it needed to not be like within 5 years, because it can obviously trigger certain actual emotions that could be detrimental to your physical and mental health. But pulling up those things. But what I found with those methods is that, yeah, there may be a scenario that maybe I once was very sad in, but once I get over it, and once I've realized like the benefit, like what I gained from that experience, it's no longer sad for me. So I couldn't use it. So I was having trouble finding those things, because I don't just cry for, like, if somebody dies, I'm not like, oh my God, something died. Like, I'm more like, what killed it? Who killed it? What do we need to do? What's the plan of action here? So when he taught me that, it has been invaluable because I've used it basically my entire acting career, of genuinely and authentically coming to emotion by finding the reason why the character is crying and finding it through love. So I don't actually I'm not using substitution by remembering something outside of the scene. I'm very much still in the scene, but realizing that the emotion is coming because I genuinely care. And that really is the difference. Anytime we cry, whether it's for a loved one, a pet, it's because they brought us happiness and now we no longer have it, which is what Brad Dourif taught me.
And so the control group guys, Brad Dourif definitely, and Monique Candelaria, make sure, if you guys get a chance, check it out. She's got some great films that are going, and she's got some future projects that are coming up as well. Definitely would love to hear about that. But before I would like to get into that, I also I was just kind of enamored with your journey. And I mean, like I said, singing, the arts, the spiritual, like everything that you were building into your direction. And now you're taking on the role with the acting, and you worked with some great talent as far as these people that are in the film. You had a scene with Anthony Mackie, obviously, which is pretty cool. And in that movie, I mean, you got Chris Pratt, that's also in there. So it's like when you have actors that are built up in those type of movies, I'm sure it's got to be a lot of fun, a lot of humor. I can imagine in that cast with 10 years, there's got to be like some stories that may have happened or something that popped up that you're like, okay, like, did you get to do scenes and had some scenes that didn't happen, or, but just in general to see that on the screen, you're like, hey, I get an opportunity to do a scene with Anthony Mackie. And not only that, now he's saying, I get to do a scene with Monique Candelaria. Like, he can look back and be like, yeah, I know her. Like, we have done a scene together. Like, I mean, I don't know. I've enjoyed seeing your history, and
thank you. It's been a blast.
I mean, just like Independence Day, Will Smith, Bill Pullman, Randy
Jeff
Quaid.
Goldblum.
Jeff
Jeff Goldblum was actually awesome.
Wow. That's amazing.
Did you?
No, I feel blessed because they definitely opened my eyes in a lot of ways. 10 years came right at the beginning. In fact, I was still SAG eligible, but I wasn't a must join until Banshee Chapter, which came after that. So to be working and also really being in an environment where we could genuinely bond and become friends. I will say Rosario Dawson, such a beautiful soul. Channing Tatum, I mean, he's funny. Yeah. His wifey was on there, and there was a lot of individuals that were there in the scenes. Yeah, there's a lot that was on the cutting room floor. There was supposed to be a threesome scene with me, the other actress that was like by my side the whole time, and then Anthony Mackie. And we were supposed to be in this bathroom stall, this whole like threesome thing going on. And Chris Pratt was supposed to be like reading a newspaper and taking a shit in like the stall next to it. And then Channing Tatum was supposed to be like coming in and trying to have a conversation, basically busting in on like the whole threesome act, which every time Anthony Mackie is like the young Eddie Murphy. He's always doing something crazy, which is fun and awesome, but one of those like, I don't know what's happening next. So it just kept, there was one point where my leg was like all the way up on top of like the top part of the stall, so that way when he came in you would see like the leg up. Anyways, that was a blast. There was a funny moment too, because in one of the scenes we weren't necessarily the focus, but we were supposed to be making out in the background. So really every time they said action, there was like a makeout scene, like, going on between us in the background. And there was a moment where he's like, "You're a really good kisser." And I was like, I didn't expect a compliment, so I was like, "Thank you," and then there was this long pause. And he was like, "Why, you're not going to say it back to me? Like, I'm not a good kisser." I was like, "Oh, God, I swear to God." He is a good kisser, but there was just like this palpable like moment of just like silence, and I just didn't know what to say. So Yeah, that was definitely like a moment where I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So yeah, like being able to have all these memories. Later on, we did all end up going out. Chris Pratt, my partner Simone was on set, and then she ended up being like off a set, just being there, being able to experience everything, which is not a common thing for someone to be able to just do. So whenever we all had gone out to eat, Chris Pratt was like, hey, everybody, like, go ahead and say like something that like your best memory right now, like of being on set. And so when it got around to her, she was like, well, no, like you guys go ahead and go. Like, I haven't been like a part of it, kind of thing. And he's like, no, you're here with us right now. Like you get to participate. And everybody just basically were able to share their perspective in that tiny window of what brought them happiness in that moment, like of being there in an existence, so he's truly insightful. And I mean, total goofball, he's definitely funny, but yeah, it's those moments where you're just like, yeah, like it's nice being surrounded by individuals like that. And yeah, remaining friends. I think everyone that I actually met on Bless Me Ultima are people that I'm actually genuinely still in contact with, where we've seen each other's careers flourish. And when you can be that close, when you can have literal, like, conversations of, hey, I'm here on this set and this is what's going on and this is what I learned and this is what I'm working with. Like it's like, I don't know, like the performance you do in front of your parents, like they're not, there to pay you. They're not getting anything from it, but you're genuinely able to express yourself knowing that they're not looking at you like, oh, you took that role from me, or looking at you like, I wish I could do what you're doing, because we're both doing it. It's a different type of communication.
Yeah.
And I value it.
Now, also, Oscar Isaacs was in that film as well. Who's currently playing Moonlight. So, I mean, technically, Marvel should be looking at you in that sense too, because you got, Chris Pratt, and then you got Oscar Isaacs, and then you got Anthony Mackie, and then even I think at one point Tatum was in line to play Gambit. So it's like, you got some Marvel action going on. Would you do a superhero movie? Yeah, you're like
100%. You wouldn't have to ask me twice. I'd be like, all right, which badass character am I now? I mean, I might be on like the, the dark side or whatever, but that's totally fine with me. Oh my God, that would be, but again, a dream come true, right? Because that's a whole other set of challenges. How do you work in an environment where there's all that CGI that's happening? And I think that's the fun part. Like, that's where you really get to test your skills, and your actor tool belt suddenly grows, where you're like, all right, don't know how to do that, but I do know how to do this. How do I make this match? That problem solving element. And that's probably why I love like knowledge in general. Like when you get that moment where it finally clicks and you're like, oh, I got it. I understand. That makes me happy. So.
Well, one of the things I wanted to do, I wanted to have the opportunity, was just to kind of test your acting skills. I wanted to play a little game.
Okay.
So generally what we would do is kind of play director. So I would give you a scene. So it's kind of like you're on the phone, right? So we're going to give you like the most dramatic scenarios, however you want to put it out there. Funny, dramatic, however the case. But, fake scenario. So, and this is what acting's about, right? Sometimes you got to get thrust in and say, hey, do this, monologues, whatever the case may be. So let's say here, you're getting a call with the news that you have been rejected from clown school. Okay. But you get one shot to convince them otherwise. So generally they're calling you and they're saying, hey, look, you didn't get the part. So you're going to actually play that role where you're on the phone and they're calling you. And so what you got to do is convince them otherwise. Hey, no, pick me for the part. So generally, so you would basically be playing, like just a fake scenarios, dramatic type, scene.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things where, you're just getting thrown in there, and we just wanted to kind of throw you on the spot, and you're ad-libbing or whatever the case may be. But that's one of the options that we have now. I'll give you another one you can pick too. So you're in the delivery room with your best friend. They're about to give birth, but the husband calls to explain why they're not there. And so you're having that conversation with the husband, right?
Okay.
There's also another one when you're on a space mission and NASA is calling you to say, hey, sorry, I know you're expecting to come back, but we're extending your mission 6 more months. So you would have those 3 scenarios. So you can pick one of those scenarios. You're going to be on the phone and you're just kind of playing that out.
Okay. Okay.
All right. You got.
Okay. So I'm already on the phone with the person.
Yes. So you're on. So you just Sassy can ring it.
I mean, I could call.
Okay. You can call. Oh yeah, that'd be great. You're gonna be talking to me.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hey, where are you?
Hello, Monique. This is Webster from the Clown School. You applied to be a part of the Clown School, right?
Yes, I did. I did definitely. I applied. I am ready. We can come on in. I have 10 outfits.
Well, we kind of have been going over your application, and I don't know for sure if you're really qualified or if you would be, a perfect fit for our school.
What are you looking for? That way I can show you that I'm the best option for you.
Well, I mean, I just don't think your credentials are too great. I mean, we're really looking for, people that can be.
You don't have to worry at all, because trust me, I can take charge and I can bring light anywhere that there's darkness. I can shine it up and liven the room anywhere that we go. Trust me, I am your person. You will not be disappointed.
I mean, we're kind of looking for someone who could be a chameleon and could adapt to any situation that they're put in.
Oh, believe me, you need a calm? I can definitely play real. I can play real. I can play as wild as you need, and I can do anything in between.
Okay, well, we'll relook over your application, and I will maybe call you in for another interview, and we'll see how it goes.
All right. But I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon, because I know you want some light in your life.
Nice. All right. And that's why, I mean, I just, wanted to kind of have a little dialogue fun with that. Just kind of go from there. And, it's always hard sometimes to figure out which topics you're going to pick or what roles, but I didn't
choose that one. I probably would have chosen the one and been like, oh my God, this baby's crowning already. Guys, I can't be here for this. Where are you?
I mean, we could do that one too.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I probably would have chosen. But yeah, that's with that one in particular, and that's a challenge too, is I don't actually do too much comedy. Not to say that I can't be in comedy, but I would say I'm probably more of the type that's funny on accident. I didn't mean to be funny, but it came out funny, versus the person that's a Will Ferrell or Jim Carrey, where it's just blatantly all over in your face. So that's okay. That's okay to acknowledge where your strengths are, and then just seeing how you can adapt, right? So thank you for that challenge.
Yeah. All right. So Sassy, anything in the chat? If you guys, anybody else that has any questions, now is a good time to.
Do we still have people in the chat? They're probably this girl talks way too much.
We've had a lot of people say that you're very insightful, very intriguing. I know there was something in regards, and I want to make sure with the book that you have. I want Mr. Christopher said something about a book, and I want to make sure and double check. I don't know. Mr. Christopher's is our resident. How would you say it, Sassy?
Smartass.
So he comes in and supports a lot, but he has no problem pulling the trigger with some comments, 100%. But definitely, like he said, for example, Monique seems to be one of the most insightful I've come across in a while. So that's definitely not being sarcastic there. But he'll say, Sassy is a big diva. So, I mean, but that's how that rolls.
With style.
So I'm going to run through this real quick too. A couple of questions just to kind of like, hey, like it's quick. So just so you can be quick about them. All right.
Okay.
Some of them are going to be off. Some of them are going to be off the wall.
Umpty said not a book and art print.
Art print. Okay. Well, okay. That was the one that Mr. Christopher said he was going to be ordering. He was going to get one. All right. So here we go. Okay. So some are going to be off the wall. Just weird. Let's roll with it. All right.
Okay.
If I gave you an elephant, where would you hide it?
Right in front of you.
Favorite comfort food?
Mole.
Who's the best dressed man in Hollywood?
Ooh. Oh my God, that's my favorite. Jean-Claude Van Damme, yes. Oh my God. Like I saw a guy here in New Mexico and he looked like that version of Jean-Claude Van Damme in my current time, which, but I was like so enamored. I lost all words and that never happens to me. I usually can come up with something. I was just like, butterflies. I was like, I'm sure this is like 12-year-old me. Like totally, I haven't even been struck like that by a star that I've met. So this was just an average Joe. And God, I wish I could have grew some balls in that moment to at least acknowledge something, to have at least a sense of dialogue. All I'll take with me is his lovely smile. All I could do was smile. Oh my God. Yeah, my dream man.
My mom watched him too. I don't know how many times we watched his movies over and over and over.
The Quest was one of my favorites. Oh my God. I still have all the VHS tapes. I'm not even joking. And they're VHS tapes. So I don't even know if they work anymore, but oh my Lordy. I was just in love with his legs.
I was actually trying to find something that had like a GIF that would have that. And it was really hard to find some of that stuff. But when I found him, I was like, okay, well, he's got the suit. I said he's got the suit. So.
Best dressed man. I was like, best legs, best splits.
All right. If you could cast yourself in a movie, what type of character would you want to put yourself in? Like, is there a challenging role that you've thought about, or something that you're like, you know what, this role would be mine. I just need to cast myself in it.
So when I was also like figuring out like my type, my look, and what I resonate with, I definitely would say more of like a Laura Croft from Tomb Raider. If I could do something like that, that's physically active and still wise, still has obviously a brain that can be communicated with on a different level. That was the type of role where I felt like it would challenge me in every capacity, but also be a beautiful, stage for me to be able to show the skills that I actually have. So yeah, so something like that. I also, when I was watching like things like Entrapment with she's also in The Haunting. I'm spacing her name right now. Catherine Zeta-Jones, and like also her in Zorro, like all of the roles that she plays, I definitely felt like I resonated with. She's fierce, she's open, but she's grounded as well. There's this an air to her that has she just has an air. She doesn't have to say anything, honestly. You just know that she's there. She's like a Sean Connery in female form. Like, it's just, you just know that they're there. As far as what I would like, any of the scripts and things that I'm writing personally right now, it's more about spiritual exploration, supernatural horror concepts, past lives. I dive more into concepts that people frequently don't see from a different perspective, and I basically put you in that world to see it through new eyes. So that's basically what I would like to do and focus on, because it's actually coming from myself and my own experiences and my own take of that world, and then being able to put the creative portion of creating a fantastical world that people can be a part of and actually want to experience and see the correlations with their own lives.
Okay. Favorite toy as a child growing up?
An ugly doll.
The ugly doll.
I was like 6 months old and I went into this store and there was this ugly ass baby doll and it was just like bald head, not special at all. Like, and for whatever reason, I fell in love with that doll. And as I got older, I became a collector of dolls. I have 26 porcelain dolls, 72 collector dolls in general, and they remained in their boxes. There was very few that I actually played with, except for the porcelain dolls. Those ones I would say that I actually actively like had up and around and would place them in places in my room, and it creeped people out. Eventually, as I got into like my teen years, it went gothic, so all my dolls kind of disappeared and it turned into Hellraiser figures. And busted the head of Phantom of the Opera, and busted the head of Frankenstein. So yeah, you definitely knew what I was collecting at the time, because based on my home.
Well, I enjoy the horror. I mean, I don't know if you can see the audience back there. And one of my recent pickups, I was really excited about. But I got Mr. Captain Spaulding.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay, so when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Oh, actually, every single year. Actually, since I turned 30, I've been challenging myself to do something I have never done before on that given year, at least some point before I turn the next year older. So starting when I was 30, I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was really mad that my mom took me out of Kempo Karate and didn't allow me to compete. And I always had this like resentment towards her for a long time. Then I did a Kabbalah session, and basically it's like you have to apologize to somebody for something you blamed them for. And essentially I ended up apologizing to my mom, and I told her that, you know, all this time I blamed her for not allowing me to do half the stuff that I wanted to do and not compete and train the way that I wanted to. I was like, but I've been out of the house since 18 years old. So really, if I had started at 18 doing what I wanted to do all the way until I was 30, I would have already mastered that skill, and I was already an adult. I could have paid for myself to do it. So why didn't I do it? I allowed her to be like that wall. So I told my mom it wasn't her fault. And even I blamed her also for not teaching me Spanish. And really, like in college, I could have taken some courses out of the country and learned Spanish, and I didn't do that. Now I was on my own, and I was paying for everything to make sure I wasn't in debt. So I didn't exactly have like everything, but if I would have focused, I'm sure I could have saved up. You know, I'm sure it would have been great. But so yeah, so 30, I went doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. 31, I had done archery. 32, axe throwing. I also went up in a hot air balloon.
I did that.
Did you? Yeah. Did you like it?
Well, so here in Tahoe, I used to work for a hotel, and I was kind of like a concierge. So they always gave us tickets to go do stuff like snowmobiling, and hot air balloons was one of them. So I got to take my niece and nephew up, and it was like, I mean, it was quite an experience, you know, because I mean, it was just like, as soon as you get up there in the air and you're just like, wow, you're mesmerized, you know, and you're just like, you're hoping nothing goes wrong, but at the same time, it's a great experience. What was it like for you?
Soothing. I actually thought it was going to be terrifying. I thought it was going to be like that feeling of standing too close to a glass window, you know, somewhere really high and being like that spirally feeling. And no, when we went, it was actually really neat, because there was someone who had just turned 10, there was me turning 30, and there was someone that was turning 21. So you had all these like really like strong like milestones, you know, that we're all inside this balloon together experiencing this thing. So as we were going over the Rio Grande, we were able to get pictures of us in the reflection of the water up at ourselves. So it was really, really beautiful. So yeah, I'm glad that you had a wonderful experience with that too. I know that it can be scary sometimes. I've worked enough balloon fiestas to know that, hey, sometimes the balloon comes off from the basket. So, you know, just like anything else, there's a risk, you know, so I do understand like the fear factor, but if I would definitely say it's something that everyone should do at least once, and you don't have to go when there's 100 balloons going up at once. You can certainly do it when you're just the only one.
Well, we were over the lake. We were over the lake, so it was really nice to take in the big Lake Tahoe. But you're like, okay, well, if it crashes, I'm going in the lake, but I don't know what's going to happen at the end. But I mean, I'd rather take the lake than the ground, right? But at the same time, I mean, it was a great experience. I definitely would do it again. And that's something I don't know what my boys would do, how they would take it. I think my youngest would enjoy it. My oldest, I don't know, but definitely may look into doing something like that with them. So
that would be fantastic. But yeah, as far as the most recent things I had never done, I went to a cat cafe that's here in New Mexico that I didn't know. And it's basically this, you can order a drink and basically there's a bunch of cats that you could end up adopting, but you basically just get to pet animals.
Was it called Mama J's? Was it called Mama J's Cafe? Because we have in our community, there's a lady named Mama J, and she's got like three or four cats, and so it's like cats are really huge. I got a big one that I'm surprised is not up here on the table, because it seems every time that we stream, always wants to come up here and rub against the webcam and go walking all over the place. So
yeah, they have a personality all on their own. I basically have the dog version of that. I have a white German Shepherd, and she is skittish, loving when she wants love, but she definitely loves to play, but doesn't like to cuddle, does not want to be like in my bed. She's her own personality and loves to cause mishaps. Like I was meditating at one point, and like I think she can sense it, and she just like slammed me in the chest, and I was like, whoa! So I learned that I have to close the door. She is not allowed to be in the room while I'm meditating, because that is a disaster. So yeah, kitties. I love kitties too.
Well,
but they're scary sometimes.
What's that cat? What was the cafe? I mean, so what do you get to do? You get to go in there, and you said you might get to adopt one of the cats, or
you could, if you want to. Basically, anybody who wants to just like have a drink and maybe get some, some of those oxytocin petting animals and release those happy hormones of just being near an animal, you basically could play and pet whatever ones are coming your way. They're kind of all over the place. They have things all on the walls or running around. Like they have almost like this big hamster wheel that they can like spin in. Truthfully, we weren't on the search for a cat or anything, but we had never even knew that a cafe like that kind of existed. Everything is in a cover. It's not like open, like basically you pay for whatever drink. You do have an admission. It's like a $10 admission to help like buy food for the animals and whatever else that they need. But it was certainly an experience, and it also is a good way to get to know a personality of an animal, where if you were looking, like it would be great to be surrounded by it and see how they interact. So I think it's a brilliant idea. But yeah, that would be the newest thing that we did for my birthday, which was go to the cat cafe. But we actively do, like I said, last year I got my certification as a stone practitioner. So that's obviously something new and different. And then the year before, I had completed a year's worth of psychic courses. So that was something that I had wanted to do, and then finally gave myself the opportunity to do it when suddenly there was a lot more free time. So I do feel blessed that I was able to do those. But it's important. People should find things that they're passionate about, and if they don't have anything, if their answer is life is meh, then get some garnets, throw them in your pockets, talk to them. Hey, make my life juicy, garnet.
All right. If you had to morph two animals to make one super one, which two would you choose? So you're going to take two animals, put them together into one.
No, I'm already thinking of one, but it technically exists. Quetzalcoatl, or Quetzalcoatl, however people want to say it, but it is the feathered serpent. Birds are incredibly fierce and knowledgeable and wise, and something that certainly should be feared, but they're also just, their representation is truly like beautiful, while the snake often misrepresented. People fear snakes a lot, but they're actually a symbol of wisdom. They absorb the earth through their belly. So they're very grounded. They're connected to the earth. So having something that's connected to the earth and the sky is genuinely, truly powerful. So Quetzalcoatl is actually the deity that I pray to when I was trying to be in tune with the character Yahima. I was having trouble memorizing the dialogue. I knew that I needed to know it frontwards and backwards. You know, when you're on set, they don't shoot things linearly. I knew that I wouldn't just be able to start it and then end. Like, I would have to start wherever they chose and remember where I picked something up, where I touched something, where I looked, on what line, what am I saying? You know, so I got totally in my head. And it was a friend of mine that reminded me that we're in a realm of free will. So she's like, have you ever prayed to a deity? And she's actually the one that actually brought Quetzalcoatl to my attention. And I was like, no. And then when I looked up Quetzalcoatl and the meaning of the deity itself, I did resonate. So I prayed to the deity and I was like, look, I want to be able to create and encompass and honor the culture and the essence of this character to bring to life something that people can respond, connect, and understand in a way that they weren't able to previously. And so I went to bed. And all of a sudden, about 2 o'clock at night, there's a clatter next to my bed, and it startled the shit out of me. Okay, so like I heard this clatter, so I jumped up, and I was like, "What was that?" So like I went to turn on the lamp, and the lamp wouldn't turn on. So I was like, "Ah!" I remember, you know, I went to run to the light switch, so I went to flipped on the light switch. Nothing turned on because I turned them off by hand. So I was like, "Ah!" So I'm running to the other side of the bed. So I finally turn on the other lamp, and I was like, "What is going on?" So I went through and went back to where the other lamp was, and the actual plug had been ripped from the wall, and it was the plug that hit the table, the metal table. So it had like the metal like legs on this side that it hit the table, and that was what the clatter was that woke me up. So at first I was like, oh my God, I'm in an old hotel. Like, you know, there's all these things that it could be like ghost related. Like, I'm not seeing anything. I don't necessarily feel like I was like in my head. So I contacted my partner and she's like, you just said that you prayed to Quetzalcoatl, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, and you were asking for it to help you to be able to absorb and be present and, you know, become one with the character, right? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, well, you got your answer. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, it told you to unplug. Since you've gotten there, you have been on your phone because people are asking you where you're at, what you're doing, when are you coming back, how everything's going. She's like, you have been more connected to your phone than you have been really being in the present and working on what you're working on. She's like, unplug. So I spent that next day completely just shut off everything, focusing on it. And I can't tell you, like, immediately it's like it sunk in. And I knew it frontwards and backwards, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do with everything. So it's sometimes you ask questions and we're given an answer, and sometimes you miss them, and it can be as simple as unplug.
Yep, true story.
Okay. What is an interesting fact that you know?
That starfish have 5 eyeballs. Octopus have 9 brains and 3 hearts.
Oh, see, she's coming fully loaded, guys.
All the randomness, right? I love random facts like that.
Yeah, and they stick with you, and you're just like, and then the opportunity comes to present it. You're like, oh, I know this one, or you know, it's like I can give you the answer. Definitely, I think it's great to have that. Do you fold your pizza when you eat it?
No.
Okay.
I did once, and it was called Psycho. But it's like, it's just a pizza sandwich. It's good. But then it does kind of like want to squirt out sometimes, and might as well keep the goods where they're at.
Is there a song that describes you?
There's a lot that describes me. I don't know if I should share them.
She's a little spicy.
Yeah. I listen to them and I'm like, that would give a lot into like my personality and what I'm thinking in here. I would say that one is Miss Hyde by Hailstorm.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard it, but
Mhm.
it's a pretty good song. I feel like it's kind of how I am. So
All right. I can go with that. Let's see. Would you rather see things in super fast mode or slow mode?
slow mode.
Slow mode.
I actually, when I'm in situations where I need to respond quickly, everything does actually go in slow motion for me. I actually, well, we were driving home and there was a vehicle that was slightly ahead of me in this direction. I don't know if you could see this, but basically the person that was here couldn't see me because I was blocked by this bigger vehicle.
Okay.
They were coming out of a community and gunned it. They were wanting to just shoot straight across. So they were coming through, and what's interesting is like my peripherals, I don't even know. My body started responding without me even being aware, but instantly I was able to know that if I braked, I would be T-boning them. If I didn't press on the gas, basically I was going to get hit. So I pressed on the gas and I actually went into oncoming traffic where the turning lane was to give myself enough time for them to have the moment to be able to pass me from behind. And it worked and I didn't wreck. And it was actually, my partner was like, how did you see that? I didn't see it. And I just responding, right? Like it was just pure response, intuition, angel take the wheel kind of thing. I don't know which it was. All I can say is that everything moved in slow motion. I knew that I thought about it prior and I knew that braking was not an option. So that's the same thing when I'm sparring or fighting, I end up in that like slow mode. The only time that I will say that it's not good is that I do believe that I have APD, which is a auditory processing disorder. So when I hear things, sometimes it takes me about 10 seconds to really like digest what you said. So I am known to be like, huh? Or what did you say? Or really quite frequently, because I'm not, it's like you're speaking in English and I clearly understand the English language, but sometimes it'll take me that second to actually absorb what it is you're asking me.
Okay. Now I wanted, you had a few pictures on your Instagram, and I know you mentioned with your partner, and so I was trying to make sure, would you be okay with me showing a picture that and you tell me, because I see a lot, right? Correct.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, obviously, you know, if you guys get a chance, follow her on Instagram. She's got some great stuff over there to showcase. They do some auditions on there as well, you know, given an opportunity to show some of her auditions that she's helping her and doing some. So definitely check that out. So the last one that I had was, what was something you used to believe in as a child that you wished still existed?
I think because I believe in so much, like even if we're talking about, I almost, if there's any children watching, I don't want to ruin anything, but you know, the idea of Santa Claus, and depending on, you know, what you grow up with, you know, people feel that that's something that they eventually lose, or they lose that like magic of the season in relation to the belief in the character. But I genuinely believe that even afterwards, even when you realize that maybe Santa in the white beard isn't real, that if somebody is in your life is willing to be Santa Claus, somebody is willing to make your day special when you wake up, then magic still exists.
Well, and that's what I look at it. I agree with that 100%. I think that's awesome, because my kids, you know, I mean, as they get older, you have to kind of explain, like, well, wait a minute, like, what's going on? But I think that magic, as you're telling them, that magic's there.
Yeah.
But you really have to reach in and believe in it, you know? So I definitely agree with what you're saying with that, because even as you get older, I mean, you don't want to let it go.
Right. And I feel like I don't have to. So I'm basically a gigantic kid. You know, it's my home has elementals and I talk to my house all day long. You know, I don't feel like anything is outside of the realm of possibility, you know, whether we want to call it different dimensions or a figment of our imagination. To me, well, the brain is powerful. Whatever you're telling yourself is what will become your reality. And that comes, I mean, even science has proved that a person sitting on a couch just thinking about a workout essentially can begin to build up their muscles. Obviously not in the capacity as if you're lifting a real weight, but there is when you're actively thinking about it, the brain doesn't know the difference. So that's something to be said even with acting and different techniques where people get into these very, very dark spots. If you keep telling yourself negative things to get to that dark spot, it's possible to dig so deep that you can't get out, which is also why I was so blessed to receive, you know, Brad Dourif's teaching, you know, to realize that tears can be achieved through happiness. That's a much better way to achieve tears.
That's he's actually on my list. I have sent in some of my Funko Pops to be signed, right? And I just got done sending Ghostface Scream to be signed by the voice actor. I got Robert Englund signed, one of the Jasons. So yeah, I'm hoping at one point. I know Brad Dourif's going to be at a con in Texas at the end of April this month. You know, and I'm like, okay, one of these days, hopefully I'll get an opportunity. But what's Slush doing? He talks to his plants.
And his wife wonders why they're dying.
Slush.
You know what? Like, I mean, it's crazy. Like I said, words are spells. I don't know what you're saying to them. But certainly, sometimes I find that over loving them too, you know, you might just need to pick up on some stuff. But if you're just talking to them, I do wonder which words you're choosing to use. Have you guys ever seen that study where, oh, go ahead.
If you know Slush, you know exactly what words he's speaking.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I can imagine it's some craziness. Yeah, he's like, oh my God, killing my elementals.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I love that.
So let's ask you, what's on the horizon? What's on the horizon for Monique? What projects can we look forward to? Anything you could tell us and share?
I'm trying to think of things that. So one thing that, well, there is a series that's going to be coming out on Netflix. It's called Spirit Rangers. It's a cartoon, and it has an all-native cast. I won't go into more on that or even tell you basically like what my part was in that, if at all. So, but that should be coming out at least by the end of this year.
Okay.
So that was one of the things that I had done right at the end of like 2020. So it is interesting to see how long everything takes to come to fruition. Another one would be, oh no, I can't say that one because it hasn't come out yet. Okay. But as far as my own stuff, I do, when the world clears up and the sky brightens and the capacity to act and, you know, the craziness isn't there, I do obviously want to get the scripts that I'm writing produced and be able to act inside of what I've written. I most likely, there is one that I would like to direct where I wouldn't want to be cast in it. I've tried being a director and an actor at the same time, and that does not work well. It is incredibly time consuming to try and be present and make sure that things are running the way that they should be. And you're consistently having to take yourself out of the character and then go back in, and the changing of those hats is just not, it's not beneficial. So there's one that I would like to direct, and then there's another one that I personally would like to be an actor for and have been thinking about who I would like to direct. There's a lot of talent here in New Mexico that I've come across that they're not widely known, but I've seen their work and I've worked with them on other projects where I would be delighted if they would direct. So that's just making sure that whoever's fronting up the money is okay with my selections. So, you know, that's when it gets into the business half. And of course, whenever you're playing the actor, of course, I'd probably be a producer on it, so I'd have some say, but you have to give up that say part sometimes. And, you know, you have to allow people to be creative within their own right. And that's the hard part too, but you're trusting that all of us are doing what we're passionate about. So only the best choice will come through.
When you're directing, when you're writing, do you find I mean, do you have to go, like some people will go to a cabin for 6 months and lock themselves up and just kind of focus in thought? You know, do you go to like a quiet place? I mean, you know, what works for you when you're writing? Is there techniques that you develop?
All of my stories come from my dreams.
Oh,
Wow.
I do consider myself a Heyoka empath. Anytime that I have a problem, basically I can go to sleep and I will wake up with an answer. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's like even down to playing video games, you know, when you're spending 3 hours on a certain part where there's a puzzle and you can't figure it out, like I can go and take a 20-minute nap, wake up and not suddenly have the answer.
Wow.
So with all of my school projects, everything, like if there is a certain school assignment or there's something that I'm focusing on, I basically have to just set my intention before I go to bed. And then when I wake up, usually there's an answer. I will say that several of the stories that I'm currently writing were not things that I went to bed before, like thinking I'm going to have this crazy dream. No, it's I ended up in the dream and then waking up and being like, oh my God, that played out like a movie, like, and I was in it and now it was real. So a lot of the time when I'm writing literally word for word what I saw, what was already in my dream. The hardest part with that is I'm not very good at co-writing. It's better for me to just get it all out and then work with others if there's areas that we need to critique and revamp. One of them that I was writing was my partner, Simone. We've been together for 17 years. So I know her in a whole other way. And apparently my dreams do too. So this particular story that had her in it and everything that she's saying, you know, I'm typing out and she has her own perspective of what she would say in that given moment. So we had a lot of fights, a lot of things where she's like, I wouldn't say that, or it should be this way. Or, you know, like it took us so long to get through 60 pages of this thing, you know, where I was just like, never again. This was brutal. So, you know, you just have to know how you work or how others work with you and then go from there, you know. So I will say that having a spot, you know, being on my own is definitely ideal with the least amount of distractions, but essentially it's already kind of laid out.
Wow.
And do you find yourself liking, you know, the aspect of writing more? I mean, do you think like generally you're just going to take on a lot of it and continue to go with it, or you're like, you know, maybe I'll write more, you know, maybe I'll direct, you know, try to just direct? And I mean, is there certain things within this industry that you're kind of pulling to, or are you really, really enjoying, you know, taking these roles on and creating them and trying to give your performance the way that you see the character?
I'm definitely a performer. So the idea of working with, you know, my voice, my body, and bringing to life the things that are written on the page is definitely my cup of tea as far as where I feel I am most challenged. In the other placements, like even with writing, when you're working with others in order to make it appropriate or whatever standard there is, sometimes, you know, your baby becomes a Frankenstein, you know what I mean, where it's not exactly recognizable, and you have to be okay with that too. But I feel like there's not as much control. Also, if you do end up selling a script, like you're giving away your baby. I don't know, like I think in almost even being a director, you don't always have say over everything, you know, depending on what producers are on it or what actors are on it and, you know, what weight they carry. What you thought it was going to be is going to turn into something entirely different. So while I have to give up a lot while I'm an actor to allow a director to give me direction and, you know, bring that to life, I think my next role or what I choose or would want to do is, if I am a character that is something that I've written, and I'm bringing that character to life, that me just having to give up the directing position would be nice to still see something that I create come to life on the physical portion too.
Let's see. Any other questions, guys, from the chat that you guys want? Oh, he's not going to babysit behind a camera. And Slush, like I said, he's great guy in the community. He's out in Canada. You know, so Slush, we appreciate you being here. Definitely, you know, taking the time. It's exactly what I thought. There was so many stories, so many things that were going to unfold and that we would get to hear and find out. And that's like when I saw you in the interview, I was like, this is intriguing. I want to know more, but I want to be able to have the opportunity.
There he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's my Simba. And this one too is like when he wants attention, he wants it.
right.
But it's on his terms.
Oh, every time. I love animals, but man, every time I want love, they don't want it from me.
I know he gets a little feisty sometimes. But but other than that, can you ask? Okay, let's see. All right, so Mr. Crispers wants to know, are you familiar with Mr. Clean?
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
That one?
So he wants to refer to my you know, because Mr. Crispers, I can work this. Mr. Crispers, he won't even come on camera. So I mean, I don't even, you know. So you got to wonder, right?
I'm surprised he didn't ask his usual question. Who he
What?
usually he'll ask who your favorite host is, Eric or me.
Yeah, and it's okay. Just pick Sassy. Don't worry about it. I'm okay with it. I mean, we love
some sassy.
Yeah. So are you happy, Mr. Crispers? There you go. So Aussie Pop and Paul. Now Aussie Pop and Paul is in Australia, and he had asked too, like, have you ever been? Would you go to Australia? Have you been there? Is there anything?
Yes, I would go there. I actually was being looked at for a series that was shooting down there. I'm not exactly sure what became of it, but I didn't get to go. So should the opportunity arise in the future, I certainly would go. And it was during COVID times. So as we know, the world has been weird, and traveling and Aussie in general, like in their regulations and stuff like that, has been interesting. But yeah, I definitely want to go. And that's a place I have not been. So I would want to explore.
Awesome. See, and Mr. Christopher says, on a realistic note, crispy note, I have enjoyed this interview immensely. She is extremely entertaining. How would one approach adding her to their autograph collection? Now, being in films, I mean, do you occasionally, people say, oh, I know that girl. Like, I've seen her somewhere. I've seen her in a movie. Like, do you get that when you're going in some places?
In New Mexico? No, not at all. I did get it in Maui. When I went to Maui, I got recognized as Lucy from Breaking Bad, and that blew my mind because I hear no one recognize, even like people that I was served, because I was still a waitress. So they were like, "There's this girl that kind of looks like you. Do you watch Breaking Bad? Like, you should watch it." And I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right, I'll check it out." But it was just here, like there was nothing at all. I felt really blessed to even be asked to do there's like a Breaking Bad tour where you get on a tour bus, that's looks like what they created their meth in, and you basically get to visit like all the highlighted points, and I was like one of the guest stars on the bus that day. So I always feel very honored when people resonate with me or my work and even ask for things. So Crispy, if you want an autograph, I would gladly send you an autograph, especially after watching me for the last 3 hours. So if you want to find me on Instagram, go ahead and shoot me a message with your address, and I'll see if I can get you a photo. You might want to tell me like which project you liked the best of mine, though. That way I don't just send you a rando photo.
Yeah, and I know even Aussie Pop and Paul in Australia said that he would love to have one as well. They don't get very many in Australia, but I know he's been here enjoying the interview as well. But so, you know, if people would like to request that and not being in a bothersome way, they can reach out to you on Instagram.
Yes,
'cause I know
send me
you're,
their address. That way I can just I'll send you guys a little gift.
Slushy
they're,
was saying something about questions, but I didn't ever see any of his questions. But I
Well-
know Christopher said he would watch you 10 more hours.
well,
Oh,
yeah. He said dialogue would be the hardest for him as an entertainer.
That wasn't a question. We
Oh.
highlighted all his comments.
He said, "Do I need to form my question in the form of a question?"
No.
But yeah,
he's fast. Man, I couldn't even write that fast. I'd be like, wait, brain still processing.
Okay, so he does have. There's one up here that says, "Sorry for the question. I just don't see a lot of famous people often and wanted advice." So I'm trying to see where his advice was, as I'm looking up. So
He's full of it because he was famous at one point in time. He was in a band or a music group or something.
You should have done some shrooms first. Maybe that would have been a better experience.
well, he did say he's high, but he's a ride. So
That's all that matters. High on life, baby.
but other than that, 10 more hours, you actually made Eric entertaining. I love you too, Mr. Christopher's. And with comments like that, it always helps me delay sending you the Freddie Funko HR puff and stuff.
Well, maybe next time I'll get you to meet your boys. I was like, where are the boys? Where
Yeah.
are they?
So Jacob, I was gonna have Jacob ask a couple of questions.
Yeah.
But he last night actually had a bad dream in the middle of the night, and so like he didn't end up going to school today because he was really like it was really tiring staying up and stuff, and so he kind of like wasn't in that direction today. Because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have him come on for just a little bit, and I'm gonna give him a couple questions to ask, or if he would have an idea of what he would want to ask.
Did he give me questions prior? I was curious what a child would ask me.
No, and that's what we were gonna see last night. We ended up doing a whatnot auction, which it's a platform and an app where you can actually sell some stuff, and he's been helping me, you know, because he earned some extra money. But we actually ran a little late last night, and so that was one of the things that maybe, you know, kind of contributed a little bit. But he's definitely the one that I would like to kind of branch out there a little bit and give him that opportunity. So, you know, see the love that I get. You see the love.
You know what? So when I performed at Vernon's Hidden Valley Steakhouse, the people that in the audience basically named me and the gentleman I performed with Hot Chicken Bald Guy. They could never remember like what our name was, like the actual name, which was Melange. So they were just like, you know, where is Hot Chicken Bald Guy performing tonight?
That's funny.
Oh man.
Oh, great.
Yeah, a few people that come in weekly and they entertain the chat for us. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Mr. Christopher's, and we don't really always get the opportunity to have Mr. Christopher's and Slushland.
right. They usually tag team.
Today was the day, party.
That's 'cause we got a hot chick on the screen, of course.
That's what's up.
And Monique
Oh,
looks
what?
oh, there you
Says
go.
that you look like Julia Roberts and Cindy Crawford had a baby.
Oh, I'll take it. They're beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
See, my cat keeps bothering me because she wants a treat. He wants a treat, and he won't leave me.
Gotta give them. Gotta give them a treat.
That's right.
That pussy demands a treat.
Always.
There you go. Okay.
I'm working from home, and this has been so entertaining. Well,
Well,
thank you, Paul.
We appreciate it, Paul, and that's why, you know, when we have an opportunity to come across people that are willing to, you know, put the time into it as well, like Monique has, you get to learn things, you get to hear stories, you get to find out a little bit more about them than just, you know, any movie. You know, you get to actually see their personality. You get to just dive into it. And that's what I've enjoyed, you know, not knowing, you know, the information that came through tonight. I mean, that was not something that I could just go list and find, you know, it's stuff that, you know, is coming from her, you know, based on some of the interactions, you know.
Well, I had done my research because I was really intrigued by Monique. So I'm like, I did really good. I wrote things down. And so then I messaged Eric. I'm like, oh, do you know this? And he's like, yeah, they talked about it in her other interview. And I'm like, oh, man. So then I did it again. He's like, yeah, they talked about it. So then I went and watched the interview and I'm like, oh.
Oh, you're like, man, those things were already talked about. Oh, yeah. Thank you guys for humoring me too. I know that I do go on tangents. I do have, you know, my brain works in like spirals. So it's like while answering a question, I'll go on this weird little like loop of information. So I appreciate anyone who's watching, you know, to go on that journey with me, because I can't, you know, man, when the brain does that, it's like I get so frustrated sometimes, because my mom will get mad at me and she's like, just so you know, you cut off that person before they were done. And I'm like, but if I don't cut in, I'm gonna forget what they were asking me. And she's like, you need to let them speak. So it's like, here I am, you know, mid-30s, and my mama's still giving me good advice on what to do when I'm listening. She's like, they'll remind you if they really want to know. I'm like, okay, mama. Okay. So I'm glad that you guys are able to rein me in and redirect.
Well, I think it was an absolute treat to have you on tonight. Oh, wait, we're not supposed to say that word slush, right? For the cat treat. But definitely, I mean, we have enjoyed it. For you to be on even to the 3-hour mark, you know, is amazing, because I feel like there's still more that we could get involved in. And maybe at some point, you know, when you have more projects going on and you're leading in, we can follow back and catch up with you and see what's going on, what's new. But we absolutely.
Or if you guys want to do an interview, you know, if they decide to hop on board, I'd be curious what the kid conversation is. I did have one little boy that showed up to, I got invited to, it was an Albuquerque hotel, and they were going to be airing the last episode of Breaking Bad, the finale of the last season. And I got invited to be one of the guests. So I actually didn't know that I was going to be in that last episode, that they were going to replay the beginning flash forward in the final episode. So it was interesting because initially I was there and everyone was just like, who's she? Do you remember her? I don't know that I remember her. Like, you know, you could just see like the conversation of them not quite sure like who I was. And then as it was playing, suddenly the scene that I was in popped up and I was shocked. I was like, you know, and then everyone kind of like looked back at me and they were like, that's her, you know. So it was nice because like then suddenly like them, you know, asking for an autograph kind of made sense at that point. But it was at a bar. So there was actually this father that came in and he was like, hey, he's like, my son would really, really like an autograph, you know, from you. Would you sign this for him? And I was like, is he here? And he's like, yeah, but they won't let him into the bar area. I was like, well, then I'll go outside. Like I'll go and meet him. So anyways, I went to meet him and it was so cute. Like here is this 8-year-old little boy, you know, that knew all of my lines. Like he wasn't just there to collect an autograph. Like he was legitimately there because he was a fan of the show. And he's like, can you write on there like free is good? Free is always good, you know. And I was like, oh my God, he knows my lines. Oh, that was the first time that ever happened to me, you know. And to see that it was this 8-year-old little boy that's watching Breaking Bad of like all things, you know. So, you know, I've worked with children all my life. I was a rec leader in my teens. I was a supervisor at a recreational site when I first entered college. And then I worked at Rio Grande High School here in New Mexico in the ISP department. So a range of children. And I like seeing how they develop. And really, it's based on, of course, you know, what they're experiencing, but who's around them to also teach them, you know. So it's a beautiful thing, you know, and that is the next generation that's going to make this world a better place. So,
well, I'm an instructional aide in special education at the middle school. You know, I've been doing that for a while. So I definitely enjoy that. Now my boys, they're not watching Breaking Bad, but I did get to I told them, I said, hey, she was in a movie and she did a scene with Anthony Mackie. And I said, and you know who else is in that movie? Moon Knight. And they're like, Moon Knight, really? And I'm like, yeah. And then I said, also from Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt, or Jurassic Park. They're like, oh, that's cool. And so sometimes when they can
They'd
identify,
be able to watch Sense or Driftless of my stuff.
yeah.
Of everything else, it might not be appropriate, but those two would be probably the ones that would be more appropriate.
Well, he's going to be 15 in May, but he's a little bit more on the advancer side of that. But definitely my little one, I would have him, do a couple of, situations and get him out of his comfort zone a little bit, So, but definitely that was one of the things I wanted to do today. But last night kind of took that away. I had to be dad and, comfort him a little bit with the nightmare. So, but that's, definitely we would love to, swing back with you and work on that, somewhere down the road. What's up, PDX? How's it going?
Thank you,
But yeah, obviously we strive to have people come on. We're popping around the world, so we like to go all different places, whether it's Canada, whether it's Australia, the UK, or Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's what we do. We bring people on and we hang out and we talk and do, whether you're in the community or not in the community, we invite you guys to come and join our channel. So Sassy Cajun is real close to her watch hours for her channel. So hopefully this will be.
So this helps. 3 hours and 20 minutes certainly helps if people are watching.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh
So if you're watching on the rewind, we absolutely appreciate it. If you get an opportunity. So Monique, if somebody is coming in for the first time, they're like, okay, well, who's Monique? Why don't you kind of give us a little, insight for the people that are watching on the rewind?
All right. So if you're watching this and you want to learn more about me or what I do, I'm a performer through and through. But if you do go onto my linked tree, you'll see where my art is available to purchase through Fine Art America, which you could even get a shower curtain of something I created. And I don't know how much you should be thinking about me while you're showering, but hey, it's possible. I also have on there my Instagram, which is my normal one, which is Mocha369. That's basically me in kind of a nutshell, and it's an eclectic group of everything. And then there's MKC with a period 369. And while that is my initials, that's also the Instagram that I use to post up my art and the jewelry that I make. And anything else that's like artistic,
which is
based
beautiful.
outside of
I have that scrolling on the bottom, guys. So right there, that's her art page, scrolling right there on the bottom.
And MPC stands for Metaphysical Kaleidoscope of Consciousness. We talked about that you cannot teach consciousness. It has to be experienced. So which means that the lenses that we acquire through each thing we experience is going to be different than those around you. So it is the kaleidoscope of consciousness that I like to capture within my work. And also you'll see that those who view it, because it's interpretive, you'll be able to create your own stories and visuals that you find within it. The 369 is connected to Tesla, which is also like the key to the universe. So if you understand 369, you know that there's much more out there than we can possibly imagine. So yeah, that way you guys remember what that is. MKC period 369. Also my IMDb page is, well, you can just type me into Google, Monique Candelaria, IMDb. Some of my stuff can be seen on Prime or Amazon. Then that includes Driftless. Lovecraft Country is on HBO Max. So if you guys wanted to check that out, it's the 4th episode. I will say that that's probably the biggest stepping stone in my career as far as being challenged, and also just the amount of work that I had to do in order to encompass the character. And then what are other things that those are definitely the main ones. So if you guys do end up writing me, do know that a lot of the messages go to like this other file. How it chooses what ends up in the other, I'm not sure. So if it takes me a minute to respond, just know that it's because I also have to go through the other file, you know. So yeah, I know. I don't like that it does that. I'm like, can you just put it all in one and I can decide if I want it in the other group? Like, anyways. But yeah, for any of you guys literally watching this, if you guys do write me, let me know that you saw it on here on the show, then I will certainly send you guys a signed autograph. Just let me know what you guys want me to sign to.
Yeah. So once again, guys, we appreciate it. And the audience is excited. Like I said, they are here, right, Tim? Yes, absolutely. So
one day I will get to work with him for sure.
But once again, we do have an escort out for you. So we have asked, yeah, he's definitely but guys, it has been a pleasure. We appreciate you guys being here and supporting and just coming through with questions or just enjoying the chat. It means a lot to Sassy and I. So, and if you're watching on the rewind, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Monique. Now, the last name, now it says Candelaria, but I've heard you kind of pronounce it a little bit different, right? Or is it? Say it one more time.
Candelaria.
Okay, there you go, Candelaria.
Candelaria.
But once again, guys, we absolutely appreciate her being here today. You know, she is definitely was Breaking Bad. She should be in the in that movie with everything that she does right there. So they should make a movie with it and have her come in.
You know, they did make a movie. I didn't get to be in it, but yeah, anyways, that's a whole other talk show. But yes,
they need to make a reboot then.
I know, what the hell.
God, people. But let me go ahead and once again, if you guys remember, we are popping around the world. We're on Mondays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Sassy and I. And you have been watching Monique. Say the last name.
Candelaria.
Just showing off a few of the intros that I made for you. But
they're great.
Like I said, when people come on our show, we definitely want to take the time and make them feel special, and we put things according to that. And I knew with the horror background, I couldn't.
That would be great.
All right, but guys, we're gonna head out. So definitely, like I said, remember, check out Pop In Around the World.